Welcome, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies,
People who
nemesis,
signed Carl Lawson.
people who sign Carl Lawson, aka enemies, nemesis. What's the plural? What's the plural form of
Nemesis.
nemesis? Right? It's like
I'm gonna
goose,
say,
geese,
say,
snail.
say it confidently.
Nemesi? I don't know.
Nemesis.
Welcome.
I like that one.
Welcome to another episode of Disguise Coverage. And aside from that funny little banter to open this episode, although if you didn't find it funny, I can't really help you because it's already happened. It's in the past. We're all business tonight on this episode of Disguise Coverage. And I say we because if you are watching, whether live or after the release of this episode, you will notice that I'm not alone. And if you're listening, you will have heard those words we, meaning I am not alone. I am joined tonight by 2/3 of the tripod that is the Hoof Podcast on the Cover One Sports Network, Anthony Romeo and Eric B. I'm also joined by Greg Tompsett of the Cover One Buffalo Podcast, again, part of the Cover One Sports Network. I don't know if you connected those dots.
That's
you did,
right.
You know. Yeah, connected.
As we're gonna do all night long, we're all just gonna rudely interrupt people with breaking news. Jameis Winston is now the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints.
Man,
They got him, huh?
Staying home.
I was hoping he was going to go somewhere not to New Orleans, and they were going to have to roll with Taysom Hill. Actually, no, I don't want them to roll with Taysom Hill because Alvin Kamara is my keeper, and you know, likey that. But yeah, as Greg has alluded to already, it's a little bit of a mad day for us as Bills fans, NFL fans. It's been actually a wild 24, 48, 72 hours roughly, ever since really the Daryl Williams news broke. Actually, even before that, the Milano news. It's been a wild 4 or 5 day weekend type atmosphere, and now here we sit for this episode of Disguise Coverage, a Buffalo Bills free agency day one recap of sorts, aka legal tampering period that started today, even though there's been plenty of tampering that's been going on. And how's everybody feeling? Anthony, we'll start with you. How you feeling? What are your thoughts?
Jeez, what a day today. I mean, let's go through the week. How about that? So Matt Milano signs, and I was shocked. I mean, as most of us probably were, but he was one of my favorite players on the Bills over the last 4 years. Probably one of the best episodes of the Hoof Podcast before we joined the Cover One Network was Sterling and I getting into it over what to do about Matt Milano, and this was 2 years ago. And I said, extend him right now. I'll give him $10 million a year right now. And obviously, most of us had written that move off, that he was most likely to cash in free agency and not be a Bill. So he ends up staying, and I'm super, super excited about that. I think he's a key piece of the defense. I've said all the time, Matt Milano plays, defense good, Matt Milano out, defense bad. It doesn't make any sense really X's and O's wise, but maybe it does. I mean, it's clearly when he's on the field, the defense is better. His skill set makes everybody better. His attitude must make everybody better. Glad he's back. But that day, I was like, I love this. Matt Milano's back. Unbelievable. But that probably means Daryl Williams is going to walk in free agency. He's going to get paid. And then the next day, boom, Daryl. I'm like, okay, all right, I'm okay with this too. We got some action here. Daryl Williams is sticking around. Wow, we got both of these guys. No Bills analysts thought we were going to keep both of those guys. So now we keep them both. All right, this is great news. Let's see what else happens, but this is going to limit us in free agency. Okay, so John Feliciano, yeah, he's going to be showing the door. Doubt he's going to sit. And then all of a sudden they signed Feliciano. So, I mean, it's been quite the roller coaster of, well, this move must mean that this can't happen. And then Bean finds a way to make that happen. So in total, it's maybe not – it's definitely been shocking. I mean, we weren't expecting to sign Matt Milano at all. Probably weren't expecting to keep both of them, Daryl Williams and Matt Milano. And to keep Feliciano on top of that, it's been a roller coaster. And, you know, we can talk about those deals individually, I guess. But, yeah, it's been fun so far. Quiet today, but I guess that's expected after the 3 big moves we made leading up.
Yeah, for sure. It's been, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's been a whirlwind. You hit it on the head of us. So many of us were sitting here a year ago being like, okay, we're looking at Trey White, we're looking at Dawkins, we're looking at Milano, and then Milano doesn't get the deal. And then as the year progresses, then it's like, okay, Daryl Williams or Milano. And I think Greg, you had a really good saying when it came to this. I think a pretty common consensus amongst Bills fans was that Matt Milano was a better linebacker than Daryl Williams was a right tackle, but Daryl Williams, his position of right tackle is of higher positional value. Therefore, he's priority number one. Maybe we can keep both, but probably not. And not only do we keep both, we also bring back Feliciano. and it ignited that whirlwind. Greg, are you also feeling the effects of that whirlwind from the last several days?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was pumped that I picked the right numbers of what the contracts were, but every time I gave it out, it was with the caveat that, hey, I don't think all of these are going to happen. I think that hey, if we sign Milano, I think it's going to be this. If we sign Williams, it'll be because he agrees to this. And both of them were, hey, I think they could go get 12 or 13 on the market, but if they come back, it's going to need to be around here. To have them all hit was very surprising. I certainly had my eye on upgrading at guard, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more later, but having all of them back and now being positioned where there's still more moves they can make to free up cap space to be able to free things up. For anybody who's just tuning in, we saw Tyler Medikevich was just extended, something I also proposed in my kind of offseason plan.
You've proposed offseason things related to the salary cap
once
numbers?
Or twice. I've been known to on occasion. So obviously that one's going to reduce his, what was a bloated $3.7 million cap hit. But I'm happy to have him back. Like, he's a really good special teamer. I just didn't want to pay that much money. So now we have him for 2 years and don't pay that much money. Hooray! I'm happy. So the combination of where we're at, I'm really pleased. I've had about a dozen instances in my mentions today about, oh man, what's going on? Why isn't being signed anybody? And I've tried really hard to hey, you want to know what? I get it. It's been cool the last couple of years. We've signed the most free agents of any team 2 years in a row. I don't think that's going to happen again. We just gave out $90 million in extensions the last 3 days. We are now officially in the, hey, let's wait for veteran, values that want to join a contender on a 1-year deal market. And that's probably like Friday. I just don't expect there to be, I won't be shocked if we don't see a move for a couple days, let alone tonight.
Yeah,
that's a good way to put it.
Oh my gosh, we just traded for Stephon Diggs. Oh crap, that's an old tweet. Never mind.
I knew it was
an old tweet. It's an old tweet.
A joke.
I thought you were gonna say Hunter there, so I got excited.
That was from a year ago. It's an old tweet. I apologize.
But I was gonna say today was pretty underwhelming because we don't have a lot of needs anymore after these re-signings, and we put a ton of work in on who are you gonna fill for guard, who are you gonna fill at right tackle. Last week we had Cody Ford playing right tackle for the Bills, so. It's been quite the roller coaster. So it's kind of, I feel fulfilled. I've already separated myself from a lot of these guys. Daryl Williams, I didn't think was coming back. Matt Milano, same thing. So I already started that process of separation, and then they come back. So it's, I feel kind of fulfilled, to be honest with you.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. And that's a good perspective to have. I think just because the Bills aren't having these multitude of moves happening today, as everybody starts to mention in the chat that they hate Greg for making everyone's pulse jump for that massive trade news that
guy's a jerk.
Yeah, Greg is the worst. Yeah, that perspective of, seeing what the Bills have done already versus what was expected, combined with where they are financially and as a team in terms of what they need, even the positions of need or upgradable spots aren't glaring, terrible holes. Again, I think, Anthony, you mentioned it, when it was just you and I speaking offline before Greg and Eric jumped in. The Bills were 13-3 last year, and they went to the AFC Championship. Even if they just ran it back with everyone, that's a 13-3 football team. Granted, you can't guarantee that the same cards fall the way they did, but the Bills have a good team, and it's just about upgrading some of those spots and getting a little bit better, and that perspective is very key, especially as we start to move into our first topic here. Offensive line talk, John Feliciano and Daryl Williams, period. Now what? ? I say that because all of us here, we engaged in a very lively discussion yesterday in our Cover One group chat on the old Twitter when John Feliciano signed. And we'll start with Feliciano because he's the most recent of the two. I personally, and I'm going to give my thoughts here, and then Greg will start with you as we keep going this little round robin. So John Feliciano signs. We don't know the specific details as of right now, but we know 3 years, $17 million, which comes out to an average annual value of $5.6 million. I'm okay with that if he's the depth guy, if he's a value guy somewhere along the offensive line, and 5.6 average annual value isn't bad for a guy who can play both guard spots, who can play center a bit, although he can't play it better than Mitch Morrison. If you think he can, so help me God. But okay, that's all right. I got a little annoyed when I saw the deal that Kevin Zeitler signed earlier today, but that's a discussion for another part in this episode. But guard was a spot that, as much as I like Feliciano's mentality and his attitude, and I think we all do, and I love what he means to Josh, and I love how good of buddies they are, but that guard spot was an upgradable spot to me. Again, not a glaring hole, not a terrible deficiency, but somewhere where we could get better. So I'm happy that he's back from a morale perspective, from a heart perspective, and I don't think his deal is awful, and I don't think it precludes us from still upgrading at guard more likely in the draft than it does free agency, but I'm not holistically confident and or comfortable in him being our starting guard or pencil in for that spot day one. Greg, what were your thoughts in terms of his contract and just kind of what it means overall?
So I think you described it accurately. I think it's naive to assume he's not assumed as a starter. I don't think there's a guarantee if something happens in the draft. I think that we're going to monitor that veteran market with guys with connections like a Gabe Jackson. And if they come in and be like, hey, Feliciano, Ford, and Gabe, two of you are going to start. Go have at it. I think that's certainly possible. I like it that the three most critical positions are locked up so that any of the movement is simply which guard, depending on draft and free agency. We know that both tackles in the center are locked in. Rock solid, that's where they're playing. Short of a shocking fall of a top 10 left tackle or right tackle in the draft to the 30th pick, and they figure something out with Daryl Williams. I don't know. I maybe there's a 1% chance, but I assume that there's pretty much no reasonable possibility that the two tackles in the center are locked in. So Feliciano, I'm assuming that the cap hit is lower and is there. They'll probably add in incentives for the 3 times he fights for Josh Allen, about $500,000 for being on Twitch and fun on social media. $500,000 for the times Josh brings him wine, $500,000 for people calling him a dog on Twitter, but those are not likely to be earned bonuses. We'll see where the things go. I certainly had my heart set on a material noticeable upgrade there, and I'm going to assume that giving him that amount of money for sure takes us out of that market. I don't think it takes us out of another competitive guard in the draft or veteran free agent market. And I expect one more guy being added here, probably in addition to Ike Bacher. I expect Ike Bacher to be back cheap and another guy to be added to compete. And then, honestly, I'll feel fine. If we have a top 3 round pick, one more veteran guy, Ford and Feliciano competing for 2 guard spots, I'm good. Okay.
Eric, what are your thoughts?
Kind of on the same lines with Greg, but love the depth that Feliciano brings. When Mitch Morris was out, you don't skip a beat, right?
It's huge.
Feliciano goes in there, handles business. I like that about him. But like you guys said, I was actually hoping to upgrade the position because you look at the team, guard was one of the big needs, one of the big areas that could improve, especially in the run game. And, we put in a ton of work just looking at the draft and free agency and doing these hypothetical situations. Feliciano, I think he's solid. He's a solid player. I'm not going to lose sleep that when he's playing, right? I think he can get the job done. But as far as getting better than last year, the window's definitely shrinking there, I would say.
Very interesting way to put it. Anthony, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to come with the optimism for a little bit. Yeah. Does it make Josh Allen happy? Yes, I'm happy then. I don't care what they pay him. Josh Allen's the one that matters on this team. If he's happy with it, we know they're close. We know they're tight. But I think what Eric hit on is key too, the versatility. Mitch Morris is our center. He's the better center without a doubt. But he has concussion issues. And if for some reason he goes down in the game, John Feliciano has that rapport with Josh Allen to be able to hand him the ball. I mean, they're friends off the field, but on the field too, that matters more. So I think that has to be a factor here. It's a good thing that he's back because if Morris goes down, we have a guy who's comfortable there to fill in. The other side of this is that because he's coming back, he knows the system. He knows how McDermott and Bean operate, and he knows that he's not going to be handed this job, right? He knows that they're going to bring in competition in every way, shape, and form. Either it's through free agency or, they draft somebody in the early rounds. Whatever it may be, John Feliciano is well aware of how this team operates when it comes to your play on the field. We paid you a value we think you're worth. Here's what we want you to do. But we're going to bring in a guy to compete with you. And that's that. And obviously he knew that. And he was still willing to stay here, which means he knows he has to do better, hopefully. And hopefully he can do better. And if he can't, then he gets replaced and he becomes quite the available backup when needed. Because the offensive line is going to go through injuries at some point. So you want to have that flex and versatility. And McBean has done that throughout their time, right? They always have 4 or 5 guys who can play multiple positions. If this guy goes down, that guy can fill in here. And consistency, right? I know we all joked about that before, right? But having that rapport with Josh Allen, I think, is important.
There's a continuity bonus in Feliciano's contract too.
Yes.
Oh, of course. Makes sense. Anthony, you mentioned some interesting points there. And so now I kind of want to open it up to anyone who wishes to speak on the matter. If one person, 2 people, or everyone here. There was a bit of backlash from some fans on the old Twitter aimed at Bills content creators and or podcasters and or people in general who are being a bit too, quote unquote, too hard on John Feliciano. Do you think there's any merit to that? Are we kind of raking him over the coals too much, or should we have more of an appreciation for what he's done?
He's the perfect counterbalance of that. The people who watch every single snap and break down every single play versus the people who see him go fight the other team's defensive linemen when they push Josh. Those are the 2 exact polar opposites of, I don't hate the dude. I just, he's not as good as you guys think. He's pretty good. He's okay. He struggles sometimes. He's a good run blocker and a pretty poor pass blocker. And maybe that balances out with Mitch Morris and Deion Dawkins, but he's pretty good. But it's awesome that he loves to scrap with people and has Josh's back, but that's like 3 times a year. I need him to play 1,000 snaps. I care about the other 997 a lot more.
And he has cool tattoos.
He does.
All year.
And he's fun. And he's funny on social media. And he's a cool guy. I totally get why every fan loves him. He's a really fun dude. I just wish he was a little bit better at football.
And even just from the talent evaluation standpoint, you don't have to believe the Bills content creators. Bean said it himself at the end of the year that this is something we have to improve for the run game. Our offensive line has to do better. They just weren't good enough. And we assume that meant there's going to be an upgrade somewhere. Well, so far we'll see. There's going to be competition brought in. We need the depth still. There will be more guards brought into this team. It's just a matter of who, and is it somebody at the bottom of the barrel just signing for whatever to come in and get a chance, or is it a top draft pick who's going to legitimately push for a starting role?
I think that's the part for me that still gets me with Feliciano. Even going back to Greg's comment about the tape, doing the film room episode with Eric Turner about the run game issues that the Bills had in 2020, I watched so much offensive line tape, more than I ever have in my life. And it really opened my eyes, unfortunately, in a more negative way towards John Feliciano, because I'd always viewed him as, okay, not great in pass pro, but a dog, no joke intended there, in the run game, and a mauler and fantastic. And he did not do as good in the run game as I had believed him to be all the time. And when you look at how the Bills were limited in their scheme up front, they had to run so much zone and they couldn't run as much man or gap scheme up front. And you add in Bean's comments about wanting to get more athletic up front on the offensive line. I see someone like John Feliciano coming back and think really? Is that with everything you said and everything we see, that doesn't seem to add up. And again, it's not the worst. Putting him out there isn't an absolute hole and a waste. And there are pros to his signing. I think we're all kind of in alignment there that it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's definitely a spot where we could get better. And
how old is Feliciano now?
29.
29. So he's in football terms, he's not really a young guy. He's not getting younger, that's for sure.
True.
I mean, I expect him to have a good offseason because he was injured last year. The arrow can only go up. But it's not like the guy can go, 2 steps better at, what he's doing. What he is now is what you're going to get, I feel like. And that's kind of the disappointing part about John Feliciano is if you draft a guy early you have the future to look forward to as they improve over time. You don't have that with John Feliciano, and it wasn't like he was great last season or has been great in the past. So, I mean, there is definitely a downside to the signing, but I'm not sure where this team ranks as far as cost for their offensive line, but you do have 2 tackles that are now pretty hefty in price, and not to mention, the center. I mean,
you're over $35 million between the 3 of those.
Right. I'm not sure where that would rank with other teams.
Deion Dawkins, Daryl Williams, and Mitch Morris together are roughly $35 million. That's a material investment. You can't really spend that much more at the guard position. Now, again, Anthony mentioned Kevin Zeitler, Gabe Jackson, hoping Andrew Norwell got released, Trey Turner. Getting a different guy also for that $4, $5, $6 million range, or having to squeeze up to 7 like Zeitler was. I would have preferred going that route, but we couldn't really go much above there. We were never in the Joe Tooney. Joe Tooney got $16 million a year from the Chiefs. We were never in that range.
Play starter, right?
Yeah,
right.
No.
Well, I label Feliciano as acceptable. What we're talking about, it's perfectly acceptable to have John Feliciano as the guard. It's not an improvement. It's not a downgrade. It's acceptable. It is what it is at this point. Again, hopefully that competition pushes him. In an interview recently that I heard with him, he actually made a comment about how much he loves. The question was about how much he and Josh Allen get along. And he's like, Josh Allen's just the type of guy you want to play for because in a position like mine, when I screw up, he covers it up, right? And probably watching back the tape, that's what you see when a guy gets by because, Feliciano isn't that great of a pass blocker. He gets by him. Josh Allen stiff arms him or runs around him, makes him look silly, and still makes the play, and all is forgotten. Nobody remembers that Feliciano missed 8 blocks in a game or whatever because Josh Allen made it disappear. So I think that's the thing that fans cling to that they're not seeing, right? Because if Josh Allen got hit every time, then everybody would be saying, get rid of this guy, he's no good, right? So it's the stats don't always come out when it comes to the play.
That's an absolutely perfect thing that you said, because I wanted to pull this comment up, and I hate to pull up comments in a negative light, but this comment that says, I hear bad pass blocking, but then I see 0 sacks. Yeah. Don't confuse that with a guy who's a tremendous pass blocker. Anthony just hit on it. Escapability from a quarterback, quick throws from a quarterback, or the passing game. Those 2 things are massive cover-ups for potential blown blocks and mistakes up front.
Feliciano himself saying that. Yes. So this isn't like...
don't get me wrong. Him putting that out there prior to his free agency, absolutely. Like, if I became a podcasting free agent, I'd retweet every good take I ever had. Like, that's just how it works. I respect the self-publicity. Quentin Spain gave up 0 sacks the year before too. Go ask Joe Burrow's ACL how that went.
Oh, dude, man, poor Burrow.
Cold.
That's cold-blooded, but kind of accurate.
I mean, like it's not that is a muddy stat. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to give up 0 sacks. No one can twist that into a negative. It's not the same as he's an amazing pass blocker because he gave up 0 sacks. That means he's amazing. No different than the arguments we make for pass rushers who have a weirdly unlucky season of a ton of pressures and not a lot of sacks. They still impacted the quarterback. They still negatively influenced the quarterback. Those kind of things come up. It's tough sometimes.
Yeah, I completely agree. Hit on that. Greg, this is directed towards you. Want to shout out Dylan for the donation. Thank you so much. This is one of the many options of lifeblood for us here at Cover One. Thank you so much, Dylan. Dylan says, hey, Greg, can you explain for the salary cap newbies like me why we only have roughly $6 million cap space, even with Allen still on his rookie deal? I don't know why you directed this towards Greg, because he doesn't know anything about the salary cap.
No money.
However, I'm super good at making stuff up and saying it really confidently. So the answer, Dylan, in a snotty, condescending way, is because they pay the other 52 guys a lot of money. The real answer is because they've strategically done that, knowing that in every build where you have a rookie contract, you go in 2 phases. You have an early phase where the rest of the roster lifts up and supports and supplements your rookie contract quarterback, and then you move into the phase where you're paying that quarterback and he lifts up and supports and supplements the rest of the roster. We are in that supplement phase. I am ecstatic that the Bills spent all the way up to the cap the last 2 years. Last year, we got the perfect confluence of that, where we had added depth across the roster, really strong other 52 and tons of other spots. And Josh Allen took his big step forward and supplemented and lifted up the talent around him. That will get harder when it goes up, but a good way to think about it is people are projecting that within 5 years the cap will be at 250. I honestly, by the math, I think that's a little low. I think it could be a tiny bit higher than that by the 5th year from here. But the amount that it's going to go up is more than the amount we're about to pay Allen. So we can continue to have roughly the kind of roster we have now. We probably can't have this roster and add shiny things and extend Allen, but we can still have the kind of roster we have now and pay Josh Allen $40 million. So that's a good, if you take our cap number right now, you add 40, we'll say 35 million, because Josh is about 5 million to that, but you add 35 million, you're at 220 million. That's probably what the cap's going to be in 2 years from now. We can have this kind of roster and Josh Allen. It's not too bad.
There you go. That's an excellent way to look at it. I'm going to bring up another. I was going to keep it moving, but Bills Mafia, and rightfully so, is pretty heated around this time of year and a lot of thoughts. So got a donation here and a question from Truth to Heart. So one, thank you for the donation. Again, massively, massively important, and we're very grateful and appreciative of that. But this is regards to the John Feliciano pass pro and not allowing sacks. So mobile quarterbacks change the angles of the line. Plus, nobody complained about Feliciano last year. Now he's a bad blocker with new scheme and injury. That's also a common thought that's been coming through the chat a bit tonight. The pec injury and how he returned from that. Who wants to take this one? I will gladly do it myself if there's no takers.
Go for it.
Ooh, copy that. I recognize the mobility aspect, changing the angles of the line, but there's a difference between someone running into a sack and changing an angle versus someone escaping and using their mobility to avoid a rusher that is in their face. And I'll speak for myself personally on this one. This is more than just, again, and I feel like we're beating a very negative drum on John Feliciano. I'm okay with John Feliciano. I think we could upgrade from him. Am I super happy if he's the starter at guard? No. Am I distraught and fretting and sweating about it? No. I think he's fine. But to your point, Truth to Hearts, about nobody complained about Feliciano last year, I'll speak for myself. I did throughout the year. And this is more than just he got blown up by Chris Jones in the game against the Chiefs, or he got blown up by this star guy. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking on a week-to-week basis. His pass protection is not there. His mobility, his footwork, his punches, his stance, his hands, they're not the best in pass pro. And that's always kind of been a thing for him. He's known as a stronger run blocker than he was a pass protector. My bigger issue with Feliciano is knowing that, then going back and grinding through all the tape and finding out that last year at least, and granted, if you want to say it's because of the injury and him coming back early or whatever, he wasn't 100% healthy, fair, I'll give that to you. But my bigger thing with Feliciano is when I grinded the tape, his run blocking wasn't what I thought it was. I thought on a scale of 1 to 10, I thought he was a run blocker that was like an 8, 8.5, 9. Pass pro was like a 5 or 6. Last year, his pass pro was like a 4.5, 5 maybe, and then his run blocking was like 6, 6.5, and I don't feel comfortable with that rolling now with a franchise stud quarterback. Knock on wood. It feels weird to even say that, and I'm very superstitious, so I'm going to knock on wood again. I don't feel holistically comfortable having that guy up the middle. And we've talked about it. I think Sterling from the Hoof Podcast mentioned it in the chat earlier today. The quickest way to disrupt a quarterback is pressure right up the middle, and if you can't protect up the middle, like Anthony, go ahead. Feel free to lend some thoughts here.
That was going to be one of the things I said is there's one thing saying Feliciano, and now we have Josh Allen who can evade. Let's give Feliciano some credit first. When he came into the offensive line last year, the offensive line got better. The whole team got better.
Correct.
We played better. Feliciano deserves credit for that. When he came in, they played better. We'll give him that honor. But the fact of the matter is, now look at our own division today. Now that teams know that we have Josh Allen's evasive quarterback, what did they say? We need to improve our pass rush to get after this guy, to get people who can jam through, just like Anthony just said, at that position, jam through the line, get to Josh Allen quickly. Otherwise, you're never going to get to him. So what happened? Well, the Jets signed Carl Lawson. The Patriots got Matt Judon. All these, they're building their teams around that aspect. And now, I don't know about you, but I'm not as comfortable about Feliciano facing matchups like that as he did with the Jets and Patriots lineup in 2020. So things are going to change, and Feliciano does need to step up and show that he can handle it, or the same thing will happen. Whatever competition they bring in, if they play better, he's not going to be a starter.
There you go. Very well said. I'm going to pull up this
to compare
last...
the two.
Oh,
Talk about Josh Allen his first and second year versus Josh Allen his third year is a guy who probably ran into sacks early on and then now helped evade them more often.
Very good point. I want to shout out our boy Sterling, mentioned him a minute ago from the Hoof Podcast. He was supposed to join us tonight, but his power went out due to some weather things, and he throws up the donation here along with my power is out. Yes, I paid the bill, but I'm kind of disappointed that you guys don't have quote-unquote breaking news. What the hell, guys? Get a real job. Sorry to disappoint.
He missed Greg's breaking news earlier. He missed Greg's breaking news.
Greg broke the Stephon Diggs trade.
Well, since you're not busy, Sterling, how about you give us some breaking news?
Ooh, calls him on the shout out. And, I mean, it makes sense. Hot topic, John Feliciano. He's been a bit polarizing in Bills Mafia, and especially on social media over the last couple of days. Let's now move to someone also on this graphic here on the offensive line, Daryl Williams, who I think it's pretty safe to say is less polarizing by far than John Feliciano. He came back to the Buffalo Bills, as many of us weren't completely sure he would. In fact, a lot of us doubted it after the Bills re-signed Matt Milano. He comes back on a 3-year, $24 million contract. That's an $8 million a year average annual value. He has a 2021 cap hit of $6.15 million, a 2022 cap hit of $8.925 million, and that same $8.925 million cap hit also exists in 2023. Anthony, we'll start with you here. You've mentioned some thoughts with it in regards to Daryl Williams. How do you feel? Daryl Williams coming back, a right tackle who had a very strong year, especially in pass protection for the Buffalo Bills in 2020.
Overall, if there were a poll of Bills fans or Bills content creators, I think this was the number one thing fans wanted to see. We all wanted to see was Daryl Williams come back, because we know how important, again, it is to protect Josh Allen and how well he played at the position for his value. I mean, we got him for pennies, $2.5 million, and he was the starter all year and played phenomenally there all year. Is he the best right tackle in NFL? No. But here's what I absolutely love about this, the Milano deal. These guys could have cashed in free agency. Big time. Daryl Williams would have been paid well more than $8 million a year, I think, because the market's there. Yes, it was a little crowded, but he would have gotten $10 million a year. He could have gotten a little more than that. Who knows? Some of these, if he went to the Patriots, he probably would have got double that. But
he's better than George Fant, and he took less money than George Fant got.
Yeah, right. So again, that's what I'm most proud of. It's not even that we got him, because I think we all expected that. Even if it went up to $10 million, we were willing to go there and think that the Bills were willing to go there. But the fact that he said, and even in his interview after the contract was announced, you could hear it in him that he was genuinely sincere that I got screwed up in Carolina. I came to Buffalo. I was allowed to be myself. I was allowed to play and earn my spot and get the respect of my teammates and my coaches and play where I was. And I feel like I was the best version of myself here. Why would I go anywhere else? I'll take $8 million a year rather than that. Same thing with Matt Milano, taking 11 rather than 15. He could have gotten easily, I think. So yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing for me. It shores up the position. He's not the best. I wouldn't even call him, elite or above average or top 10 maybe, but he's very good at the position and he's solid. And we needed that consistency of being able to protect Josh Allen.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the other options, like that was a huge hole for the Bills. If he signed elsewhere, filling it is going to be very difficult to get that standard of play. And Daryl Williams was, the top-rated PFF player on the line last year. So I think this signing was the most important one, even over Matt Milano. And just because the other options aren't great, right? You go with a rookie, you kind of don't know what you're going to get with a rookie, right? And then we were talking about Cody Ford playing right tackle. A lot of unknowns there as well. But what we do know is it didn't go well the first time, right? So I love the signing here. I love that they got it done, even though, a lot of us didn't think they would be able to. I just think it gives the continuity bonus, was what Greg called it, and I thought that was a good way to put it. There's a bonus to that, right? Because he already knows the offense. Now you can add to it. You already know where the guys you're going to be working with, and now you can add to it, right? And I just think it builds more of a complex playbook long term.
Well, I'm going to contradict myself because I'm a complicated man. The stat that went out there is it's not a lie. The stat that's out there of, hey, last year, do you know how many snaps the Bills played with Deion Dawkins, John Feliciano, Mitch Morse, Cody Ford, and Daryl Williams? And the answer is 0. And I will say that's factual. That's correct. I think there's a chance that that's our best offensive line combination, and we could find that out this year. As many people pointed out, there's not a ton of reason to assume that just having those 5 together will make the individuals play better than they did already. Because we had Dawkins, Morse, and Williams for the vast majority of the season. So if the benefit for someone like Cody Ford would be that playing between Morse and Dawkins should be about as good as he's going to do. So the couple combinations could be individual things. Both players played injured, either coming back from injury, got injured and left and didn't come back, or some combination of the two. That would be your biggest reason for hope. So Daryl Williams was my most important signing. As Anthony pointed out, I said I would have taken him over Milano, even though I thought Milano was a better linebacker than Williams was a tackle. As our other Anthony, as Anthony pointed out, nothing is more important than Josh Allen. So if protecting Josh Allen is more important than having a good coverage linebacker, so if I had to choose, I'd choose the guy who protects Josh Allen. So the fact that we got them all back and now can run it back where we are and we literally had all of them back and hadn't entered free agency yet and hadn't entered the draft yet, and we're going to add more talent to where we are. The fact that our baseline is, hey, we're going to have as good of an offensive line that helped us score 500 points last year. Okay. Don't get me wrong. I'd like to improve in the run game. I'd like to add some more additional things. I had some names listed out that I thought would have been upgrades. But for as much as, we kind of crapped on Feliciano a little bit, he played during the best stretch of Bills football in the past 25 years. So it wasn't that bad of an anchor. He wasn't holding us back all that much. It was the biggest scoring binge we've had in 2 decades. So he ain't all that bad. So I think we sometimes get caught up in the film breakdown and the specifics and those pieces of it. But I think the threshold, the floor is pretty darn high. The floor is pretty darn good. I'd love a chance to upgrade and raise the ceiling. The floor is pretty good.
Right. And it's a lot of it's the opportunity to raise the ceiling, right? And that's kind of why I was disappointed in Feliciano's, because there is an opportunity to improve. And like I said earlier, it's kind of lower now, but this floor is still high. That's a good way to put it.
Let's stay on that topic of the offensive line and that going forward option. Eric, we'll start with you, and then we'll go Anthony and then Greg. Greg, you mentioned a bit of your thoughts a little earlier in this episode. So now what? Looking at this offensive line, so we're sitting there with kind of a quote-unquote penciled-in starting 5 right now of Dawkins, Ford, Morse, Feliciano, Daryl Williams. Are you comfortable completely with that being the grouping going into the season? If not, what would you like to see in free agency or the draft, or a combination of the two? And again, Eric, we'll start with you. What else are you looking for the offensive line, if anything?
I would like to see competition, because injuries happen, and we learned that last year. Like, a lot of things can happen, and having depth really matters. And this regime really loves versatility. And I think that saves them a roster spot. So I would say I'm not comfortable going into the season with what they have right now. I would want to see some more either depth or somebody who could actually compete for the starting job. But I think my perspective has changed as far as the draft goes. I think I'm on team. You sit back in the 3rd round, you let a good guard fall to you that maybe everybody else missed on. And that's changed just today, after these signings. That I think that's where I'm at now. That's where I'm settling in.
Okay, Anthony, how about you?
Yeah, I'm probably right with you there. I would say, am I comfortable with these 5 going in? If you tell me absolutely these 5 guys are going to be the starters for the Buffalo Bills starting the season, 100%. Great, sounds good to me. Let's do it. Let's see how it works. But we know this team, and as we've already alluded to, nothing is guaranteed. I mean, we know who the center and left and right tackle are going to be, but it's not guaranteed. What if one of them gets hurt, or something happens in the preseason, and the competition for Feliciano? They have to bring in competition. They have to bring in veterans. They are going to both, I will say, and I will say they are, not they might. They are going to draft, because the number one thing for me is you got to get younger. None of these guys are getting any younger. You got to get younger somewhere on that offensive line. Find a guy that you can develop again. I mean, they love these types of guys, right? We've seen them on the roster throughout the years, guys they bring in, sign, undrafted, whatever. They have to draft a guy. I agree with Eric that maybe the 3rd round, 4th round, there's a guy you scouted that you're high on that everybody else is letting fall. Then you pick them there. We've seen them do that through their draft strategy before. And also bring in some veteran competition / depth, especially at the guard position, but probably somebody who's versatile, as Eric said again. Yeah, because those are the things that we know this regime likes.
Very good. Gregory?
Can you repeat the question for me?
Why am I so handsome, and why does that drive the views? No. How comfortable are you with this perceived 5-man unit going into the regular season of Dawkins and Ford and Morse and Feliciano and Daryl Williams? And if not, or if so, you mentioned your plan a little earlier. What would you like to see done for this offensive line going forward, whether in free agency or the draft or a combo of both?
No, I'm not comfortable. Yes, I'd accept it. I'd like to have some competition that pushes them. I think that it'll be fine. Like I said, the floor is fine. Like it's fine. I want to improve because I think it will allow for an upgrade in areas that we were down in, like running efficiency and things like that. But I don't think it's some glaring hole. The fact that we brought back, NFL quality starters, and we have quality starters across all 5 offensive line spots, is an incredibly envious position in the NFL. There are a lot of teams who would love to have 5 starting caliber offensive linemen. The Bills have that. I'm greedy, so I want more, but it's not. The downside ain't all that bad.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I'm subscribing to a little bit of kind of what everyone has said here. I would like another veteran brought in, preferably, I think, as we all would like, cost effective. I think the Gabe Jackson idea is fantastic, or someone else who is a solid play, who gets cut. We could potentially bring them in, slot them in. And then I'm looking towards the draft. If someone, guard and corner number 2 are the 2 big, and edge as well, are the 3 biggest things for me watching as we go through the rest of this offseason. And we'll start to talk about that as we move into our next segment here. But seeing what falls in the draft based on what the Bills do in free agency. If someone, as a lot of people mentioned here in the chat, if Elijah Vera Tucker from USC is there at 30, give me him all day. I'll take him right now. Or if J.C. Horn, the corner from South Carolina, is there, give me him. If one of the good pass rushers fall, or even somebody, we've talked about it a lot on Twitter and in the group chat, somebody like Jason Oweh from Penn State, somebody who isn't going to be a killer stud right now in 2021, but he's got some good tools, should be really good going forward. Let him simmer a little bit in 2021 and be a pass rush specialist type of thing. I am looking for the Bills to address guard going forward, whether it's a value signing in free agency or someone like Elijah Vera Tucker dropping in the first round, or a lot of our favorites, Landon Dickerson from Alabama, put him at guard, and then he potentially takes over for Mitch Morse in a couple years, Quinn Miners from Wisconsin Whitewater, Wyatt Davis from Ohio State, any one of those guards that can be taken in the top 3 rounds, along with another vet, just to create that competition and see what we could possibly do. That would be a big one for me in terms of now what and what do we do going forward. And that leads us into our next topic. Greg, we're going to start with you here on this one. So the Bills brought back Matt Milano. They re-signed Daryl Williams, and they re-signed John Feliciano, but there's still some spots that could be upgraded. And now that Andre Roberts has gone, kick returner is another spot. There's some wide receiver 2 clamorings. There's some running back thoughts. There's corner. There's edge. There's more things along the offensive line. what are you could give one, or you could give like a top 3 or 2, whatever you want to go with here. What are your top priority or priority positions going forward through the rest of free agency and through the draft?
My ranking would be, I'd still like a veteran pass rusher, an upgrade to Bam Johnson, Trent Murphy as DN4. I'm curious. We saw the news earlier tonight that Levi Wallace will not be tendered, but that they have not shut the door on him returning. I wouldn't hate a move there. I had outlined Akello Witherspoon, Malcolm Butler, Xavier Rhodes, guys like we saw Jason Verrett sign earlier. He was the guy I targeted.
That was a disappointment.
But it showed the market. He signed 1 year, $5 million. Yep. That's exactly what I would anticipate, that kind of move. So if Xavier Rhodes or Malcolm Butler want that deal, come on over to Buffalo. That kind of thing, that you have Dane Jackson and a 1 year deal on a veteran guy like that. And then tight end, I don't expect us to be the mystery team that's in on Hunter Henry because he hasn't signed yet. But I do think we're in that release market, that if the Cameron Brates of the world, Kyle Rudolph, maybe Zach Ertz gets released, Jared Cook down to Dan Arnold, I think we do add a body at tight end. And those would be the spots I would predict. Maybe a speedy value wide receiver. I heard a little whisper, maybe to keep our eyes open, of Rashard Higgins from Cleveland. So, a guy who is in a run-heavy offense behind OBJ and Jarvis Landry, maybe a little untapped potential. But, nothing crazy. I expect it to be multiple moves. I expect them all to be in the value range at likely $5 million or below. And the one exception I'll throw out there is, I'm a huge fan of the Athletic Football podcast, that Robert Mays and Nate Tice, and they threw out that they would love to see the Bills go after Melvin Ingram, 2 years, $16 million.
Ooh, that's my guy.
ever since they said that out loud, I can't think of anything else.
I said that on the podcast when we were picking defensive ends. He was the one that I said, hey, you could come in for the right deal and the right amount. Bring him in. Give him a chance. Why not? Let's see what he can do. Yeah,
and with the structuring we've seen, that means you could probably make it like a $5 million cap hit in 2021. And you're talking then a 4-man rotation of Jerry Hughes, Mario Addison, Melvin Ingram, and AJ Epinesa.
Please.
Sign me up.
I'll take that. Eric, what are your thoughts here? Priority positions going forward through the rest of this offseason?
I got to start with edge all day long. Just, outside of quarterback, it's the top position, right? When you look at positional value. And I'm not really sure if our problems are all solved at edge. And I really think that depends if you're a AJ Epinesa believer or not. For me, it's still a lot of unknowns, but I think edge is the top priority. I mean, this team expects to go deep in the playoffs. And when you get deep in the playoffs, I think you need a solid pass rush to win, right? Especially when you're playing the Pat Mahomes of the world. We talked about Danielle Hunter. Talked about Melvin Ingram. We talked about a couple of weeks ago, who was huge. And Carlos Dunlap's not somebody I would shut the door on. Any of those guys, even a little bit less than that, would be an upgrade for us. I feel like Trent Murphy didn't even play. He's inactive a lot last season. So I think we really haven't seen the full potential of this defensive line under McDermott. With that, cornerback 2 is very interesting to me because one thing that the McDermott has proved to me is they don't need a top cornerback 2 to be a really good defense, right? They were top 3 for 2 seasons. Last season's had a down year, but before that, top 3 in the league as far as pass defense, right? So I want Levi Wallace back. I think he's a solid player. I like the mixture of savvy veteran with Levi Wallace. I thought Levi Wallace got better every year. Love to see him back. But one thing we haven't seen yet, and untapped potential once again, if we take a corner in the first round, that would be just the talent level of that secondary would be instantly top 3 in the league, right? You're talking, maybe Legion of Boom, something like that. Maybe not.
Yeah, we got to think of a
hard hitting, but I mean, I've just never thought of it at that angle where if you do take a really talented corner, like they become a really, really tough team to play.
I love that idea, but for over a year now, probably more than that, I've been telling people, we all love that. We all love CB2 and would love to see. But guess what? That's not what McDermott does. He takes a star and a bag of beans and makes it work, and that's exactly what he does at cornerback. and it works. He has top defenses with that approach.
Yep.
So I highly doubt at all that, I've been saying up until this point, I was like 0% chance they take cornerback in the first round. 0. I don't care who's there. They just don't do that. There's too many other positions in need. Now I think you could possibly, if the right guy is there and they think it's, the right move, maybe draft. So my positions of need, not any different than what these two already said. Basically, I want a veteran pass rusher. That's definitely one. Ingram was the guy I said on the Hoof podcast. Man, I would love to get him now. If they can make the money and the years work or whatever, I think 3 years and make this year even more negligible, even less of a cap hit. The other position that I really want to see an upgrade in, wide receiver too, I think is another one where we need a return man. We need a wide receiver. They could go draft in terms of a speedy wide receiver who could be the return man, and then have faith in the guys that we drafted last year at that position to step up, because we still don't know what's going to happen there. Yeah. And then tight end is one that I've been saying I really, really want. I mentioned, we did on the Hoof podcast, we did our Making the Case series. I did the tight end episode way back when, and Dan Arnold was one of the names that I said I would love for him to come here as a veteran and then also draft somebody. And my draft crush, I don't know if we're going to get into draft, but I definitely want to draft a tight end because I think that it's another position we can upgrade on. So veteran signing at edge.
Who's your crush?
Brevin Jordan. I want him.
Miami.
I want him. I've watched his tape. I said, this guy is good, and I want him. Bring him in. Draft him. I don't care if you trade back up early into the third or back into the end of the second, whatever, depending on where we pick in the second. You got to get him. I love that guy. I want him. He's my draft crush right now. I think he would go great with Dawson Knox. You'd have two tight ends who can, the one thing Brevin Jordan does that Knox has struggled with is catch everything. Like, he can catch. So, and he's separation. He's an excellent receiver threat, helping Josh Allen. Basically, that's, if we can get weapons on offense that help Josh Allen, wide receiver, tight end, and a pass rusher to help the defense, a veteran guy, somebody who's established, I think needs to be there rather than spending maybe the first round pick on a pass rusher. I'd rather go the veteran, sure thing, kind of know what you're getting out of him.
Oh, all righty. Question, and Anthony, we're going to stay with you, and then we'll go to Greg and we'll go to Eric. You can make one guaranteed move right now, and it's got to be something realistic. It can't be like, oh yeah, Hunter Henry on like a 1 year, $1 million deal.
Yes.
You can make one guaranteed signing in free agency going forward, or you could also do the trade for Danielle Hunter, but you got to put a package together. You can make one guaranteed market deal right now. What is your deal? Who is it and why? Anthony, we'll start with you if you got one. If you don't, and you need
reasonable.
A minute to think.
Honestly, Ingram would have been one that I brought up because, again, he was the pass rush option that I said behind Carl Lawson, because when we were talking on the Hoof, it was like, okay, well, what if they don't sign Carl Lawson? Who else from the barrel do you want? Pick your guy that might come at a good value. And I think right now he's exactly the kind of guy they're looking for. And it might be a good fit for him, too, to come in and say, I'll take a 2-year deal. I'll play like hell, and then maybe I'll cash in a little more, at the tail end of my career again. So, yeah, I mean, he's the guy that I would love to see on this team. We haven't talked about it, but don't count out Stills. I mean, they brought him in for a reason. He was. I said the entire times in the playoffs, I was adamant he will not play a snap. He's not here to play on this team. He's here in case somebody gets hurt, and he's here to audition for next year. Show us you're the guy who fits in with us. Show us what you can do, and we'll pay you what you want in free agency that makes sense for us. And I think he's an excellent fit for that wide receiver position that I just made the case we need to upgrade.
Oh, very fair point. Greg, what about you? What's your one move if you could make and you would do, and tell us why it's Danielle Hunter?
Well, so real quick, it's not Danielle Hunter because I don't think that's actually realistic.
Yes.
Danielle Hunter is 25 years old and has more career sacks than Jerry Hughes does at 32, and Jerry Hughes is good.
That's crazy.
Isn't he?
I'm going to say that over again real quick. Danielle Hunter is 25 years old and has more career sacks than Jerry Hughes, and Jerry Hughes is good.
Isn't he seventh in the league in sacks since like 2017 or 16 or something?
He is the highest sack at age X ever.
Wild.
That's a long-term
Ever.
answer right there. You
Ever.
have your long-term answer if you get that guy.
He's the kind of guy that when you go on the mock draftable chart, it's just the big web of all the stuff. And his comps are Jadeveon Clowney and like all the biggest Barkevius Mingo, Cameron Wembley, all the biggest like combine freaks ever.
Yeah.
And Deion Jordan, guys like that just blew up the combine. And some of those guys end up not being good, but he's good. So if you're telling me there was any reasonable chance, so I was joking earlier. Let me be serious for a moment.
Right.
If there was a chance we could give up a first and a conditional pick next year that converts to another first if it's Danielle Hunter has agreed to a long-term extension with Buffalo, which will cost Joey Bosa money, like $25 million a year. Imagine what Stephon Diggs did to the wide receiver core before, where John Brown becomes number 2 and Cole Beasley becomes number 3 and Gabe Davis becomes number 4, and nobody can handle that. But now Jerry Hughes is number 2, Mario Addison is number 3, AJ Epinesa is number 4, and you have a guy that even if they double team him, he can still beat that anyways and make game-changing plays. I'm really hard pressed to say that there's a better alternative out there. Now, do I want, in the structure we're in and the extensions we're about to give out, can we afford to give up 2 rookie financially controlled contracts at first round picks? No. Are you going to get somebody as good as Danielle Hunter at the 25th to 30th pick the next 2 years? No, you're probably very likely not. So, anyone who says that, no, we shouldn't want Danielle Hunter is crazy. Now, making the case that it's not realistic and we can't afford him, okay, I'll listen to that. It's not a perfect fit. It would be shoehorning a huge contract in we haven't budgeted for. That's fine. Let's remove that. So taking a step down, my realistic one that I don't think is crazy, it would be Melvin Ingram. It would be, he's not the same impact as Danielle Hunter. He's probably 110% of Jerry Hughes. He's probably a couple years younger. Maybe you're getting the Mario Williams year Jerry Hughes, that kind of guy, and slotting that in I think is still super valuable. I think that's a valuable one, and I would go along those lines to go after a guy like Melvin Ingram. I think that he can still do that. He's oddly the same age as Jerry Hughes, so a guy that is not as young as what some people may recall or remember, but still super, super athletic, talented, explosive, still has a lot of those moves. I think you could get him cheaper. I think it's feasible to sign him. I think you could get him 2 years, $16 million. In the first year, we could probably get down closer to $5 or $6 million in cap space. You could make that work. So that would be my one wish. If I could lock in one move, I think he's the best still available. I don't think we could afford Von Miller. I don't think we want to afford Hassan Reddick. So the best still available pass rusher for me is probably Melvin Ingram.
Oh, okay.
To your point, just to jump in quick, one thing we didn't say earlier is that with the moves that Bean has made, I think that opens it up to the possibility that they now have the flexibility to trade first-round picks and go out and get guys like this, because, we had so many holes. We needed that first-round pick this year to really take that next step. Now you might be able to make the argument that, well, there isn't a glaring hole anymore, so we could get rid of that first-round pick, get a huge upgrade in a trade, or even next year's first-round pick, whatever it may take to make a trade. It's not out of the realm of possibility anymore, whereas a week ago I would have told you it's probably never going to happen.
We need it,
Yeah.
Eric, what do you got? What are your thoughts?
I probably need Greg's help here, but how do we sign Jadeveon Clowney?
Oh.
So,
I mean, you said wish, right?
So Jadeveon
That'd be a
Clowney
tough one.
is...
an anomaly, right? He wants 25. He signs for $8 million before the year starts.
He might be a Friday guy.
I'm gonna guess. So the way you would do that is similar to the JJ Watt structure, where it would be, hey, we're gonna sign him to a 1-year, $12 million deal, but we're gonna add on voidable years that spreads it out, and that we're gonna eat $4 or $5 million of that this year and spread out the rest into voidable years. And even with him, I would even give him the caveat that, hey, those years won't void if you hit 15 games played. If you hit 15 games played or 60% of snaps played, because for a defensive end, that's pretty good to play above 60%. You play above 60% of snaps or 15 game appearances in 15 games, we'll turn that into a 3-year, $36 million deal that don't void. If they void, we just spread out the cap hit and got a 1-year run at it and took a stab at it. I think you could structure that and make it feasible. And, you know, I don't know that he's the guy, but I think that there's a non-zero chance that one of those guys that loses musical chairs and is left over, Buffalo's now a market for those kind of guys. And
and they're a contender, right? Real Super Bowl contender.
Kyle Rudolph thought he was going to get $10 million, all the tight end money's spent up, and he's like, well, all right, I guess if I'm going to take a cheap deal, I'll do it in Buffalo. Like we're going to get, I'm going to guess 2 of those where there's going to be signings, and they're going to be 3 weeks from now. And it's going to be, wait, the Bills got who?
Right.
And it's going to be, oh, okay.
I expect Clowney to sign earlier this season because I think he lost a lot of money.
2 years in a row. He's messed it up. 2 years in a row.
I mean, eventually you got to learn from that, right? So that's my dream scenario. Somebody who could come in and make an impact on the team immediately is definitely Clowney. But, I mean, if we want to talk realistic, I mean, Xavier Rhodes, I think, would be solid for this team.
Excellent choice.
Cornerback, too, fills a need. You know, I think he fits well in the system. He'll fit well with the secondary. And, I mean, he's still got some in the tank, I think. And then Cordell Patterson's also been a name that's popped up.
Oh,
we do have a huge,
I'm so glad you brought that one up.
Huge need.
That fits that, yeah.
Every time you bring his name up, Eric just lights up. He gets so excited about the idea of TJ Yeldon plus Isaiah McKenzie plus Andre Roberts in one roster spot.
One guy.
Five spot
competition.
Third running back, yeah.
Well, no, I mean, we joke about that, but honestly, that's how you get to keep an extra DB and an extra linebacker and an extra offensive lineman or an extra running back. Like you all of a sudden, you could keep a 7th wide receiver. You could keep an extra running back that you don't need to be game day inactive. You can have an extra tight end. You get to just have free playable roster spots because we had guys that's all they did.
That's a very good point. When you have somebody who can wear multiple hats and do them all to, well, I mean, Cordell Patterson, I think he does everything he's not even an above average returner. He is an elite returner, and he's an above average third running back and wide receiver. I would gladly take that. That's a very interesting one, especially one from a value spot. I like that a lot. Mine is,
I think he just turned 30 too, so we got,
he's still young enough.
He's not the Patterson of old, but he's still got
speed. Yeah, if you watched him last year with Chicago, he's still got explosion and burst and speed. I would take that, and I like the roster versatility it affords. Oh, that might be up there for me. Initially, I was going to say I'm real torn between the pass rush and the corner 2 upgrade. The only reason I would rather go pass rush in free agency is because I think if I knew right now that in the Bills' their first round pick at pick 30, they were either going to go corner or edge, I think they could get a corner that can make a starting level impact, corner 2 level impact this year. There are multiple corners that they can take at 30, plug them in, and they're an upgrade at corner 2, whether it's speed, athleticism, physicality, ball skills. There's plenty of guys like that. Edge, guys that we're most likely going to get at 30 are more dudes that they could get some burn this year in 2021, but their real bright future is ahead of them in 2022, 2023. So because of that, initially I was going to say if I can make one guaranteed move, William Jackson, corner from the Cincinnati Bengals. I love what he does. I mentioned it in the Cover 1 pod episode that we did last Thursday. The average annual value that he's pegged at is phenomenal. Granted, I think he's going to sign for a little more than that, but it's mainly the scheme versatility that he offers. He can play man. He can play any zone. He's got length. He's got size. He runs a 4.37 40. He allowed a 52.2 reception percentage last year, very comparable to Xavier Howard and Jair Alexander. I think he's very underrated. He was my original answer, but because I think we could get someone in the draft closer to William Jackson's level, then we could get an edge in the first round of the draft closer to Melvin Ingram's level. My answer would be something along the edge, and I love the Melvin Ingram idea. I think that's tremendous. Go, Greg, go ahead.
So I like going aggressively in the other direction for either signing. So if they go after Xavier Rhodes, any combination of William Jackson, one of those kind of guys, then go get me Jason Owa or Osai or one of the bendy, toolsy developmental guys who's probably not ready to contribute early on, but has really high, not Daniil Hunter potential, but that kind of guy. Daniil Hunter was a 3rd-round pick because he was just a pile of traits and nobody knew if it was going to work out. Go get me one of those guys who we can afford to play 30 or 40% of the snaps this year and ease them in. We don't have to rush them. Or the opposite, if we get an Ingram, we get even a Justin Houston or a Ryan Kerrigan, or we get a guy who can play those snaps and contribute in a good 40% of snaps role, then do the opposite. Go get me the most athletic, longest, twitchiest, freakiest cornerback that's out there, but bring back Levi Wallace and Dane Jackson and let him just learn. He'd be like, hey, see number 27 over there? Watch all the stuff he does. Just watch all the stuff he does.
Do that.
Try to do the stuff he does, and we'll check in with you next year. Later.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Either one of those, I want a wide receiver. Go get me the craziest, fastest guy that's out there. We have luxuries now that we have a roster with 19 of our 22 starters back, and maybe more than that soon, that we've lost very, very few starting pieces from the team that was in the AFC Championship game, 13-3. That means we can afford to take upside stabs at high-end talent and hope that a couple hit. Hope one of them hits. And ease them in, where if they don't pan out, it's not like, oh man, we really needed that guy to start, because we don't need starters. We need contributors. We need rotational guys. So take a stab at the upside and get me one smash home run, and then be like, oh man, you remember when we picked that guy we thought was going to be a pass rusher and now he's out of the league in 2 years? Well, sorry. That's fine. I know that's the risk. You're not going after just the slap singles that we just needed contributors before. Give me the upside swings and take advantage of the depth of this roster.
That's a very good way to put it. And I was thinking that notion. Yeah, you're smart. You do a good job. I think we just have to that combo. We're all and it's a matter of what do you value more, what do you think can work more. I think a lot of us, and when I say us within the Cover One team, we recognize the need for the pass rush to be better, but we also recognize the speed that we need on the back end and the athleticism we need on the back end. At the end of the day, we're not just building a team solely to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, but we need to be able to have a team that's built to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, whether that means getting after Patrick Mahomes right away, or it means having guys on the back end that can run with Hardman and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And so you got to craft that team somehow, some way, mix and match. And it's very interesting to see basically where our heads are all at. It's either something along the lines of like pass rush or corner. And I think how last season ended, I don't think we're being reactionary at all and saying like, that's where the need is, because legitimately that's where the need is. That's where we have to get better. We were a 13-3 team. We had a great year, phenomenal. But if we want to get over the hump and beat the Chiefs, who are still, I know Tampa killed it, but the Chiefs are still arguably the best team in the NFL. We're going to have to contend with them. We got to get better in that pass rush pressure aspect. And then the athleticism on the back end. And an opponent of ours in our division, the New England Patriots, they made some moves today. I don't know if anyone has heard. They made maybe 1 or 2 or I think 8. They've been very busy. And Eric, we're going to start with you on this one because they were very busy, as the graphic shows here. Busy day one for the Pats. I'm just going to reel off several of their signings, so 6 in particular. So Jalen Mills, corner from the Philadelphia Eagles, 4 years, $24 million. Matthew Judon, edge from the Baltimore Ravens, 4 years, $56 million. Jonnu Smith, a darling of Greg's, 4 years, $50 million. He's now the 3rd highest paid tight end in the NFL per average annual value. Nelson Aguilar, as reported by Spot Track, 2 years, $22 million, but it's a contract that's basically 2 years, $26 million. Kendrick Bourne from the San Francisco 49ers, 3 years, $22.5 million. Devon Godshaw, 2 years, $16 million. Just between those 6 individuals, that's $194.5 million in new contracts for the New England Patriots. They did a lot today. They got some good pieces, but they overpaid in several areas. Eric, I think it's impossible to not, even if the Bills somehow won 10 Super Bowls in a row and the Pats are the worst team 10 years in a row, we're always going to be thinking about the Pats because they are our nemesis and they are the evil empire for a lot of us.
They've caused us so much pain. Right.
They have caused us so much pain. You hit it right on the head. Yeah. What are your thoughts? We'll start with you, Eric. What are your thoughts on
obviously,
the day the Pats had?
These are some good players. Matt Judon is a respectable defensive player. But this is what jealousy looks like, folks. You spent all this money and not one real dollar went to quarterback, right? Okay, you doubled Cam Newton's salary, you got $14 million. That's still very low.
Oh, yeah.
But you need a quarterback to win in this league now more than ever. And they've just avoided that whole thing altogether to prove that it's coaching and it's not Tom Brady. It's not the quarterback position. And I just think it's wrong. I think you cannot win in this league, especially with Pat Mahomes, the Josh Allens of the world. In your conference without a quarterback that can sling it. I like Cam. He had a down year last year. I expect more from him this year. But you can sign these players all day long. I don't think it's going to get you over the top or get you to where you want to be, back to a 12-win team.
Trey Hendrickson to Cincinnati.
Yep, I just saw it in the chat there. Oh. Do we have any details on the
contract? Carl Lawson hole.
Nothing yet. Yeah, they literally pivoted directly and that that's not even joking. Like from what's being reported is they were in very close back and forth with Carl Lawson, and as soon as that happened, pivoted immediately to Trey Hendrickson.
Got to see the deal, but I think
my guess is super close to the Carl Lawson number, probably similar to the 3-year $45 million is my guess.
30 mil guaranteed. Oh man, breaking news.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And just as we're going through there, we made fun of the the signing Nelson Aguilar because you should make fun of it. Yeah, yes. But we compared it to Yannick Ngakoue. Terms of that have come out as well. It is 100% guaranteed. They guaranteed every dollar of the $26 million. It's 100% guaranteed contract. $22 million at signing, $4 million in a. $4 million in some kind
salary,
of roster bonus, but guaranteed. Every dollar of it guaranteed.
See, that's a
Since Kirk Cousins, that's the first time I've seen.
They haven't really shown us that they're good at developing receivers, even free agents, right? It just hasn't worked out for them in the past few years.
So I'm not sure if I was next, but I'll jump in. If you just show me the list of names that the Patriots signed, I would go, oh, well, that sucks. I like Kendrick Bourne, and I like Jonnu Smith a lot, and I really like, many of the play. I like Nelson Aguilar. He was a great value for the Raiders last year. I like Devon Godcho was a target of Eric and I's. I like a lot of those pieces. When you show me the price tag, I think all of them are overpays. There's a few that are okay. Kendrick Bourne for roughly $7 million is okay. Some of them are gross overpayments.
$8 million a year for Godchow?
And if you're going to go through and tell me out of all the guys connected to the Patriots that signed contracts today, the best one's Joe Thuney. So you threw out all this money and you didn't even keep the best guy connected to your team. So don't get me wrong. This is, and we said it pre-show, this is super similar to the Dolphins last year when they were throwing around this money. And I was saying, you want to know what? I like Kyle Van Noy, and I like Emmanuel Ogba, and I like Shaq Lawson, but you paid how much? And now we saw it directly come back this year. We're like, oh, yeah, we kind of overpaid. So don't get me wrong. The Patriots got better. The Patriots 2021 team will be better for what they did today. I do not believe it's going to pay off for them long term. Trey Hendrickson, so it's literally the exact same. They just added one more year. So Trey Hendrickson, 4 years, $60 million.
I was not paying that for Trey Hendrickson. No. So, not happening.
And all my I walked back my comments on Hendrickson a little bit when I said he was literally Trent Murphy. I said I did say he's a little better than Trent Murphy.
Yeah, you slandered him.
But I said really I was just throwing this out there that he's going to get paid like a number one pass rusher when he's really a hustling, good contributor to a good defensive line with Cam Jordan and Sheldon Rankins and, first-round picks all around him. And that, he cleaned up a lot of that work. They are now paying him in Cincinnati to be a number one pass rusher, and he's not. And they're going to find that out the hard way.
On a line that doesn't have a lot of supporting
backup.
Doesn't have Carlos Dunlap, doesn't have Carl Lawson, likely is going to lose Geno Atkins.
Yeah.
Oh boy,
It's
that's
tough for
a
them.
massive deal. But he's a
Good for him.
we good for him, and we hit on it.
Somebody
I think
was going to pay him.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Someone
want
was
to know
going
what?
to pay him. You
I'm
saw
glad
those numbers.
Cincinnati
you see
paid
the
him and
size.
not Miami.
Yeah. And then even Bud Dupree's deal is big. 5 years, 82.5, but up to 85 million.
That's
I believe.
a lot.
Thank you to everybody in
So
the chat
much
for
money.
reporting that. I like Bud Dupree, but I mean, especially coming off of an ACL tear, even not like 5, that's a lot of money for that. And I know pass rush is at a premium, but
There was
boy.
one name I would have broke the bank for this year, and it was Shaq Barrett, and he went back to Tampa Bay because he wanted to stay. And
Oh man.
Yeah.
Wow, a lot of breaking news coming through here, and
Crazy.
now we'll start to backtrack a little bit. Eric, as you were wrapping up your thought there on the Pats and the day that they had, and Greg started speaking there about the names. The names alone are like, okay, those are good deals, but then you see the money, and it's just kind of really wild, especially from a Patriots team that's usually known for their savvy gets, especially in free agency.
My turn? Me? Who's
Yeah,
going?
sure. Do
Oh,
it up,
yeah.
Anthony, go ahead.
'Cause when I saw all these signings, it was similar to what Greg said. Like, one of my favorite players, again, I did the tight end episode, making the case for tight end. I mentioned Jonnu Smith, and I said that he could probably come at about $8 million. That was his spot track prediction. I was like, that sounds like a good number if you're willing to invest there, but I'd probably sign cheaper Dan Arnold and draft a guy, Brevin Jordan, hopefully. But, Jonnu Smith got 4 years, $50 million from the Patriots. $50 million.
Third highest paid tight
almost-
end in average annual value.
I mean, it's insane. I was like, you paid Jonnu Smith. I'm not even mad. Go ahead, buddy. Have a nice time with the Patriots. Because how the tables have turned. Everybody's staying in Buffalo because it's a great place to play and it's a great culture. And they have an amazing quarterback who's lighting up the NFL. And the Patriots don't even know who their quarterback's going to be after this year. So if you're a receiver or an offensive player like Jonnu Smith, you don't know who's throwing you the ball after 2021. If you're, Nelson Aguilar, who, what the hell, $13 million? There were people who talked about him coming to the Bills, and I was like, I love it. Bring him to the Bills. That would be great as a nice piece. Give him $4 or $5 million. $13 million a year for 2 seasons. You're nuts. But that's what they had to pay him to bring him in. The same thing I loved in your intro when you're listing guys. I kind of started to laugh because you said Kendrick Bourne, the guy from San Francisco, because people are like, wait, Kendrick Bourne, I know that name, but who's that guy again?
Yeah.
And it's just because you had to overpay to get them. And now that's your number 2 guy. Your number 1 and number 2 are Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne. And that's, it's not lighting the world on fire. I'm not afraid of the Patriots receivers. Even with Jonnu Smith, he's great yards after catch. I like him for that. He's a dynamic player. But if Cam Newton can't throw the ball more than 5-10 yards, I mean,
especially with him as he's now Jonnu Smith is, for all intents and purposes, their primary option. Like he's their number 1 option.
He is their number
offense.
1 paid weapon.
Yeah, I'm not. I wanted him on the Bills to supplement the passing attack that we had, not spearhead.
I wanted him as our 3rd option in the passing game and to be the John Brown replacement per se, not as a primary weapon.
It's almost like they still think they have Tom Brady to me. It's like we can turn these 3rd string wide receivers into guys who can just catch the ball, and then that's all they need to do. And Jonnu Smith would be great with a guy like that where you can dink and donk and let him make a play, but Cam Newton's your quarterback. I was going to comment on that. More dynamic wide receiver than that.
The moves are similar to Miami, but Miami had a plan to get a quarterback. New England has no plan.
We'll see. We'll see. I could see them trading up in the draft. The hard part is
they have picks.
They can trade up, and it's a 4 quarterback draft, maybe 5. Some people like Mac Jones. I don't think he's anything special. The challenge is if you trade up from 15, you're going to be trading up, and teams that need quarterback are at 1, 2, 4, and 8.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let's say you want to trade up from 15 to 7 to get ahead of the Panthers. Yeah. You're going to give up a king's ransom to get the 4th best quarterback that's left.
Yeah.
It's just I don't see a scenario that this fits super well for the Patriots.
I would have went for Trubisky if I was them. Showed a little bit upside last season. I mean, it would be an upgrade. I don't think they have to do a lot with their run game and good defense. That's just me personally.
I'm going to let whoever wants to have at this. I don't really want to highlight foolish comments, but this Patriot fan that's in here says, we win in that division. If it wasn't for COVID last year, we would have won last division. Come on, sir.
Let's just laugh at him. I mean, come on. That's great that you think that. Remember all those years you said that to us when we were like, the Bills are going to beat you this year? Oh, good for you, buddy, because enjoy it when you get swept. When you get swept by the goddamn New York Jets this year, okay? Because you're going to lose to the New York Jets this year. I am predicting that right now. The New England Patriots will lose to the New York Jets. They're going to be last in the division still. At the end of the day, for the Buffalo Bills, this is what it comes down to. Is New England going to be more competitive this year? Did they get better? Yes, they will be more competitive. They did get better. Bottom line is Josh Allen and our offense is 10 times better than anything they've added today still to me. I'm not intimidated by what they've added. I still think we can beat them on the offensive side with our defense. And their offense is still one of the worst in the league. Did they get better? Yes, but are they top 15 even willing to compete? No, they don't scare me. None of those guys added scare me when Cam Newton is the quarterback. The combination, maybe that can be good and competitive, but it still puts them nowhere near where the Bills are to be the favorite to win.
Swapping Trent Brown for Joe Tooney is not an upgrade.
No, exactly.
It's at best staying equal.
At best. At best, at a very high best.
If he's healthy and playing his best,
Yeah, they went from last year having the worst skill players in the division and probably in the NFL to this year paying $47 million to Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne to still have the worst skill positions in the division.
Yeah,
it's not pretty.
I don't like to bash other fan bases or teams, especially just because I'm very paranoid and very superstitious. But, sir, that was a pretty churlish and foolish remark there. Just
how the turntables!
How the turntables!
Crap. But however that works.
Yeah, I just don't.
We have a saying in Texas: "Fool me once, don't get fooled again."
Yep, fool me twice. Can't get fooled again. That's a very bold statement, and to think that, or believe it, and have some kind of thought, I recognize it. The Patriots are the Patriots, but to just boldly claim it and plant that flag is just very egregious. And
I respect it. I respect it.
One last comment on this, because I did say this on Twitter today. I'm a gambling man. I love to gamble. My favorite bet of last offseason, I picked the Bills to win the division. That was, it was kind of predicted that year. I picked the Bills to go to the AFC Championship game. I won some money on that. I picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl. Didn't win that one, but it was still a high payout odds, My favorite bet of last season was the Patriots to finish third in the division. It was the highest paying payout of, I picked the Bills to finish first. I picked Miami to finish second. I picked Patriots to finish third. Of those three predictions, the Patriots was the highest payout. Why? Because the media was still all hyping them all over that Cam Newton was going to change the world, and all of a sudden they're going to compete for a Super Bowl. Then they got brought back to reality, and now they are exactly where they should be. And with all this movement today, I'm gathering it in, and I'm just waiting for the media, for ESPN, for all those guys to blow up again and tell us, the Patriots are so good, they're going to win the division, and then watch them all look ridiculous when they finish last in the division and lose to the Jets.
Man, shots fired. I love it.
It's fantastic.
I like the way you tied a
I
bow
want
on
to bathe in it.
I just want to bask. I want to bask in it. Yeah, bathe in it. Just let it surround me and engulf me. That's a beautiful statement. As we start to wind down here, before we get to our next topic, and our last topic, I wanted to bring up this question from Zach, because I think it's applicable, and it's something that is a bit of an underlying thought here with the Buffalo Bills. Isaiah Hodgins, Anthony, we'll start with you because you mentioned some wide receiver things earlier in this episode. So the question from Zach is, do you think Isaiah Hodgins will pan out? Dude was a beast at Oregon State and had a good camp before he got hurt last year. Anthony, what are your feelings and thoughts on Isaiah Hodgins?
Yeah, I think I think basically he's going to be this year's Gabriel Davis. Because Gabe Davis had the chance to come in, kind of get a few shots, and then we're like, oh, shoot, this guy's really good. Okay, he can fill in for John. Okay, this is looking really good, and it worked out. Hodgins actually had more that I liked when he came into the Bills than Gabriel Davis did. Okay. He can catch the ball. He's a red zone threat. We were talking about him like he's tall, he's big, but he can run. He can. His hands are his biggest thing. He can catch the ball anywhere in contention. I think that's going to be huge for this team because now you have Stephon Diggs, who's always open. You have this guy who can catch the ball when you throw it to him, no matter where you are. A huge red zone threat. So it wouldn't be a surprise to me if he comes in as the fourth wide receiver on this team. maybe even the 5th, but he has, the second most touchdowns because he's a red zone threat. And if we don't sign a tight end who can make that play, he could be that guy as a wide receiver who has those hands and he can get to the sideline. He can do all sorts of things that if he's healthy, and I think the injury thing, he could have probably played this year. We saw at the end of the year, they were thinking about maybe we should activate him or not, but they kept him on the IR. And I think that was the right move because you didn't really need him. And now he can come in fresh this offseason, learn again. He still was there for all those meetings. He got educated on football in the NFL this year. Now we can see if his talent actually pans out on the field. And yeah, I see it very similar to how Gabe Davis came out last year.
Like that. Greg, what are your thoughts on Isaiah Hodgins?
I think he was described well. I think that fourth receiver role, big slot, is what he's best suited for. He's not the athlete that Davis was, but I actually liked him from a translation to the NFL better than Davis coming out. I wasn't sure if Davis was ready to contribute. I think Hodgins was going to be able to step in and play NFL football right off the bat. I think he's going to be a David Nelson type. Like, he's not going to be explosive or like a big, huge game-breaking player, but just like a nice, reliable receiver who can run a slant route and use his body and get his hands up and catch, contested jump balls. And honestly, Eric and I talked about it, that as we were putting together the explanation for why we wanted to go after Dan Arnold, and we were like, an awful lot of these things apply to Isaiah Hodgins.
Yeah, man.
And it's not crazy. Like, so another thing that's the Bills Mafia favorite thing to conject and fabricate into, manifestation. The Duke Williams to tight end thing.
Yes.
Isaiah Hodgins actually kind of could do it.
I was going to say,
Isaiah Hodgins actually kind of has the frame and the hands and the ability to be that,
especially in the red zone, right?
Move tight. Like, I don't want him putting his hand in the dirt next to Deion Dawkins.
No.
But you're telling me, like, some of the stuff that we kind of want to be done is a big slot, red zone target, those kind of things. Hodgins might be able to be that guy. So I expect him to have a fun season that's 25 catches for 250 yards, but maybe something sneaky like 6 touchdowns or something. I think he's going to be a perfectly nice fourth receiver. I still want the speed element out on the edge that can take the top off the defense. But if you're telling me we go get Deshaun Jackson and Kenny Stills and Isaiah Hodgins, and then those guys a slight bump up from Gabe Davis, because I don't want Gabe Davis isn't ready to do all the things John Brown did, and I don't know that he's ever going to be able to do the things John Brown did. There's things he does better, but there's things John Brown did that he can't do, that I want to take John Brown's snaps and Gabe Davis's snaps and kind of convert that into Gabe Davis's snaps with a Kenny Stills or a Deshaun Jackson and an Isaiah Hodgins, and those are the weapons that we use to fill in those route combinations.
Oh, I like that thought. Eric, what do you got on Isaiah Hodgins?
I'm going to stay where I was last offseason, and that's how is he at special teams, right? Because this receiver room is stacked. Love his talent, love his upside with the hands and the red zone threat. But to make this roster, I think you got to be on special teams, because I think there's a good chance the Bills are going to draft a receiver at some point higher than where Hodgins was drafted. And there's still a chance they could sign one in free agency. So then it comes down to that versatility, like we were talking about earlier with Patterson and McKenzie. So he's got to outplay those guys, and they already have a leg up because they do have versatility. So how is he at special teams? And I do think it is a long shot for him to stick around with the Bills.
Interesting.
I could see him as a game day inactive for part of the season or whatever, and then bring him in when you think he can be effective.
If he can play the tight end position, that's versatility that the other guys don't offer, right?
True.
So there's value.
He's such an intriguing one to me, because I much like was mentioned here a couple minutes ago, coming into last year and coming out of the draft, I liked Isaiah Hodgins more than Gabe Davis. Now, part of that might be because I saw way more Pac-12 games live than I did watching UCF. And I knew of Gabriel Davis and what he'd done, but I was much more familiar with Isaiah Hodgins. I liked his route running and his hands. And like Greg mentioned, I thought he translated well to the NFL. I thought he was going to be the sneaky breakout year, not breakout that Gabriel Davis had, but Gabriel Davis had, I would say, a good rookie campaign, especially in comparison to what that offense did. I thought that was going to be Isaiah Hodgins. And when Gabriel Davis had it, I was like, oh, cool, this is even better. But this whole offseason, I've been sitting there thinking, yeah, like, what do we get out of Isaiah Hodgins? Because to Eric's point, I don't know how he would function on special teams. Like, I don't think he has the long speed to be a gunner on punt coverage or even maybe on kick coverage. He's not built for that life. I think he would have to be more functional in terms of like a pure offensive role. So if it comes down to how much can he contribute on special teams, if that's the determining factor, I don't think that's a strong case then, because I don't think the special teams aspect is going to be strong for him. I think it's purely a offensive 4 wide, 10 personnel scenario where he can function in different parts all along the offense because of his size and route running and hands and his length and his contested catch rate which was one of the best in college football. It was ridiculously good. Yeah, I don't think the special teams part, if that's where we're drawing the line, it's going to be tough for him. But I'm excited to see what he can do because, I mean, I thought he was going to be better than Gabriel Davis going into last year.
Yeah, I think the one thing he has going for him is his hands. Like I said, if he catches the ball, there's an adjustment to catching a ball from Josh Allen. We've seen that with everybody who comes in. But if he can catch the ball as consistently as he did in college, he's on the roster. They will find a spot for him. They'll carry 9 wide receivers if they have to. He will be on the roster because he can catch like anybody in the NFL, really, if he can convert that from college.
And he's not going to fill Smoke's role, right?
No, right. Yeah, he doesn't have that long speed.
The team is now lacking that because I think Gabe Davis, he can run a lot of those routes, but Smoke is kind of a special player, right? He does some special things. And I'm not real sure if they're going to just let that go. Are they going to be actively looking for somebody to take Smoke's role with the route running, with the speed?
That's the point right there. Like, we talk about the speed and the nickname Smoke, like it's all about the speed, and we get it. But John Brown's route running is a very underrated aspect. Yeah, 1,000% of his game. And a lot of the ways he was able to beat guys deep is because of his route running. People don't realize, like, the route running and the technical aspect of a go route or a vertical. They just think it's like, well, a guy runs fast, so he just like takes off and runs by someone. But his route running, even in the vertical routes, is strong, let alone all the other aspects of the route tree that he can run. It's hard to replace that speed and that route tree ability. Greg, I saw your hand up. What do you got?
So I do have close to breaking news, the closest thing we've had. So someone was asking Dan Graziano about updates on teams. And he was answering. They asked him about the Bills. He said, obviously the effort is towards bringing back the great team they already had last year, although I'm hearing tight end is a spot where I believe they're trying to add.
Dan Arnold, come on.
So Travis Kelce to the Bills.
So obviously he's hinting at Hunter Henry. So in that route tree, my favorite route John Brown will ever run is the 3rd and 4th quarter routes where he's scared the crap out of the cornerback the entire first half and now gets the free 15-yard comebacks that they're petrified of him beating him over the top. I'm like, oh, here's free 15 yards. Oh, here's free 15 yards because they give him so much cushion and being able to come back. It's fantastic. I still want that. I still want that option for just the free yards. And he honestly did – he ran the scramble drill with Josh really well. And late in the season, I think that Stephon Diggs built that confidence with Josh and that chemistry. But early on, that was still critical to be able to have with Josh Allen and John Brown. And that's not going to be replicated, super easy. So Isaiah Hodgins is not going to have that immediately. That's not the highest nuanced area of Gabe Davis's game. That'll grow over time. I don't know that's fair to ask him this year to do. But there are big-bodied contested catch plays that he could make that weren't John Brown's specialty. So there are things Gabe Davis brings to the table that Smoke didn't have, but there was more that John Brown had that Gabe Davis just isn't quite at that level yet, but can develop into. So it'll be interesting to see, and I think that we're going to see an addition there. We're going to see another name there. I don't know who it is, but we don't have Isaiah McKenzie. We for sure won't have Andre Roberts. I don't think they have big plans for Jake Kumaro, but that's not crazy.
You never know.
The fact that because Jake Kumaro it's weird to talk about him as like a value or a benefit. He's better for a roster, in my opinion, than a Tywan Jones or a Tyler Matakevich, because he's actually a functional receiver. Taiwan Jones is not actually a functional running back. We would be hurt by that. Tyler Medikevich is not a linebacker. We would be hurt by that.
Correct.
Jake Kumerow's an okay receiver. He's a below average receiver, but he's a legitimately below average functional
He
NFL
scores a
receiver.
touchdown on every catch that he makes.
100% catch, 100% touchdown rate. It's amazing. So having a guy like that where he's there for the purpose of special teams, but if he's your game day active fifth receiver, it's not the end of the world, because if you need him in there to run routes, he can do it. Some of those kind of things are interesting that they're going to be looking for at the tail end of this roster to figure out who can help lead into things. So,
Eric, what about your guy, Eric? Josh Allen's guy on the practice squad.
Tanner Gentry.
Tanner
Gentry.
Eric, yeah, go
I've
ahead.
been saying this for years. Franchise quarterbacks get what they want. And I said this back when they drafted Josh. I said, when Tanner Gentry's on this roster, Josh is a franchise quarterback. And look what happened.
I like it. I can't argue with that.
That's such a great call.
Plus,
Buddy.
Tom Brady always had one buddy, right? Josh gets a buddy. Or I think Brady had 3 buddies at one time, right?
Yeah,
Amendola,
a lot.
all these guys. Josh at least gets 1. So I think Gentry makes the roster.
Yeah, Welker into Amendola, and Edelman. Yeah, it was always something.
Josh deserves at least 1.
In light of that somewhat breaking news there regarding the tight end, Greg, will stay with you on this since you basically broke that news. If the tight end addition was going to come based on that news in terms of the Bills going after it, who would you think it would be, and who would you want it to be, especially given like price? Would you prefer to trade or sign a recently released Zach Ertz, or would you go for the Hunter Henry model and give him upwards of like double digit money a year, 10, 11 mil? Or is it someone else?
I
know your heart's still a little wounded because Jonnu is gone. I recognize this.
It hurts my soul.
I recognize
So I'll be sneaky here. I hope that the Colts sign Hunter Henry, which means they rescind their restricted free agent tender on Mo Alley Cox. Because Mo Alley Cox is Lee Smith but athletic. So
Benjamin.
if you want, yes, he actually had the biscuit to become a full tight end. So Mo Alley Cox is a high-end, high-quality blocking tight end who is not just a sixth tackle. And because Lee Smith is a great blocking tight end. He was, if you go back and look, for as much crap as I give PFF grades, I look at him an awful lot. Lee Smith was the 5th highest graded offensive player for the Bills last year. Because you want to know what? All they asked him to do is block, and he's really freaking good at blocking, and went from 9 penalties to 0. So that combination of setup is great, except for every time that you bring in Reggie Gilliam and Lee Smith, they got a pretty good idea what you're doing. So all of a sudden pivoting to that, to where if you have Dawson Knox and Mo Alley Cox, and now, it's fun to say Mo Alley Cox.
It is.
If you have... if you have Mo Alley Cox out there, he's a really sneaky addition that would be versatile. He'd have the silly, 5 catches for 5 yards and 5 touchdowns 10 weeks into the season, but just devastating blocks the whole time and could actually be a threat. So he's a realistic one that I'd love to go after, because that's the spot we're missing. And if people think we're going into this season without a tight end that can block, you are sorely mistaken. That person is going to be on this roster. So I want that to be a creative addition that has some receiving threat along with them, not just a mocked up guy. So I guess along those lines, maybe some of those inline hand in the dirt tight ends, like a Cameron Brate, like a Kyle Rudolph, like a Zach Ertz, maybe that's a possibility more than people think, is that, if you're going to bank on Dawson Knox having upside left, maybe it's that way. So, and I know, Truth or Hearts, they're talking about the 10 personnel. I'm torn, and I've got, so you guys would have no idea how often Eric Turner and I have like like nasty debates and arguments, but it's just in a DM with me and Aaron and Eric, and Aaron will come back, and Eric and I have been going at it for 2 hours back and forth, and he'll have to catch up on like 50 messages back and forth.
Funny.
And one of them is the chicken or the egg debate of this year.
Oh, the 12.
Did we run 10 personnel because our tight ends suck, or is our offense designed to run 10 personnel to leverage the wide receivers? He believes strongly the strategy is how Joe Marino is in this camp too, that the strategy of the offense is 10 personnel and wide receiver centric. I am of the belief we did what we had talent based around last year. We didn't have any good tight ends. So, of course, you want to get more wide receivers on the field. So we were number 1 in the NFL in 10 personnel. That Brian Dable didn't spend all that time in New England and Alabama being phenomenal at tight end utilization and then say, you want to know what? Screw it. I don't want to do that anymore.
No tight ends.
Like, he didn't forget. We just didn't have anybody any good. So I still want that option. And saying that, I'm not saying I want to become the freaking Vikings or the Browns and run 50% 12 personnel. I just don't want to be 31st in the NFL in it. I want to have the option of being there. And instead of freaking, I think we ran 12 personnel like 6% of the time, which was 31st in the NFL, only ahead of the Cardinals. I want to be 15%, 18%. I want to be middle of the pack in 12 personnel usage because we have talent at the tight end position.
I like it a lot.
Rant ended.
Clear.
Go ahead, Anthony.
I think I agree completely with what Greg said, that 12 personnel is, I would love to see the Bills run more of that because it gives you more options and you could do more with it.
More variability.
Exactly. And you brought up, maybe the Bills. First of all, Brandon Beane, he doesn't lie to us when he gives his post-game and his postseason press conference. And what was the number one thing he said? Again, point blank, which he doesn't usually do. It's usually coded in some way or another. Point blank, his direct quote was, nobody was scared of our tight end position. We need to do better at that position. So they're willing to upgrade. The other thing I will say is they love Dawson Knox. They believe in him. They're going to develop him. They 100% are committed to him. We saw that last year because they said, all you other guys can sit on the bench. We're starting this guy when he's healthy. Literally, we don't even want you here. You're inactive for game day, right? Croft and even Lee
and
Smith,
everyone
even
else.
though he's a blocking. Yeah. So Knox is still going to be their guy. I don't think they're going to go out and sign a guy like Hunter Henry because then you're talking, yes, we want a lot of 12 personnel, and Hunter Henry's one of your top receivers now. That sounds great, but he's also
or it means Knox just doesn't play anymore.
Oh, right, yeah, and that's again, I don't think that's going to happen because they love him, and so paying him $11 million plus for Hunter Henry does not make sense. But I'm going to say his name again. You know who the number one comp to Hunter Henry is, or the number one comp for the guy I want, Brevin Jordan, is Hunter Henry. So yes, give him that, and I think that he's the right guy to bring in to draft. You still have to sign a veteran. There's nobody in the tight end position right now, so we know they're going to add there one way or another. Ideally, I want to sign Dan Arnold as a veteran presence guy who can catch the ball and still make big plays, and then draft a guy like Brevin Jordan to develop and have there long term in case Knox doesn't work out for you. So you need to have those guys there. I love this tight end position. I can't wait to see what they do with it. But I don't think it's going to be – I am very low on Zach Ertz. I said that. I'm very low on David Njoku. You can have those guys. I don't want them on this team. I
said the same thing about Gronk when everyone was talking about Gronk going to Buffalo.
No.
But, if he actually signed in Buffalo, though, I'd probably get over it.
Oh.
So, real quick, since we're just on here debating nonsense, I agree with Gronk. I agree with Njoku. I agree with a lot of those things. Why are you out on Ertz?
I like Ertz.
Short of one disastrous season in Philadelphia where everything fell apart, his last 6 seasons in a row were 850 yards, 816 yards, 824, 1163, 916.
Top 3 fantasy tight end.
If we were talking trade, I'm completely out. I don't want to give up the capital and the salary. If they cut him and he's willing to come in and sign because he's coming off a major injury, because he might not be the guy. Okay, 1 year, 5, 6, 7, sure, bring you on board. But I do not want to give up capital. That's the same thing with Njoku. He'd be 100% great. Agree. Sure, if they cut him, I think he could be that Dan Arnold type that I'm looking for, but I don't want to overpay or...
Let me throw one at you. A 5th round pick for Evan Ingram.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Give me that.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one that I would. Yeah,
Fifth
okay.
round pick? Sure, yeah. That
Give that
gives
to
you
me.
that stability.
Because
And he
they're in a
needs-
spot where they a 5th-year option is guaranteed. They cannot release him, so it's cap relief to trade him that they cannot get releasing him. So I don't think they're going to get the most draft capital back. I think they're just looking for a team that can absorb that cap hit. So I've seen him out there as a pretty low end thing, and that they're interested in Kyle Pitts, and that trading Ingram, drafting Kyle Pitts, and moving forward with that offense. He's a guy that I'd be mildly
love
intrigued
that.
by. It's 1 year,
some
$6 million
dropsies.
to absorb.
He had some
That's
dropsies,
good
but
price.
he's
He's
Is it better just to get a big
120% Dawson Knox.
yeah.
Yeah,
that's-
exactly.
He's
That's what I was
120% Dawson Knox.
That's
They're
it.
complementary, and
Yeah.
it'd be great to have two of those guys.
But I
He's
would
a little
take-
faster,
I would
a little
take
more
him.
athletic. Also
That's
cuts the
exactly
ball.
like if catching the ball is obviously the most important thing, but if we had Evan Ingram and his drops versus having Dawson Knox and his drops, I will take Evan Ingram and his
Can
drops
you imagine
every
how
day
much
of the week.
farther down the field his drops will be than where
Correct.
Dawson Knox were?
It'd be so much more impressive. I'd have to follow the ball for at least another 0.72 seconds before he drops it. It would be fantastic. Oh man, a lot of interesting thoughts and questions in the comments, and it's getting us. Again, this is free agency, and it's even more exciting now because now we're in a position where we're not hanging our hat and our hopes and dreams on free agency. We're looking to supplement because, knock on wood, the Buffalo Bills are a good football team, or we're looking to continue to build on the strong foundation we have and get better and become more than just a Final Four team in the NFL, looking to get to the Super Bowl, looking to win a championship. But that being said, you can't get everything that you want, and there have been some guys that have been signed that have made us sad a little bit. I'm going to start this one. I mentioned it earlier offline. Kevin Zeitler really got me, especially I'm not. Anthony grabbed his heart. Where you and I are symbiotic because maybe it's because we're Anthony's. I don't know, or maybe it's because we're both on the top. I don't know, but I'm still okay with the Feliciano deal and the value that it brings. But knowing that Feliciano signed for 3 years, $17 million, and Zeitler signed for 3 years, $22.5 million, knowing that Zeitler has a $7.5 million average annual value, and then his cap hits are still fine. His cap hit for 2021 is $4.05 million to be exact. His cap hit for 2022 is 8.975. His cap hit for 2023 is 9.475. His contract also has a potential out in 2023 that kind of makes this deal like a 2-year, $16 million deal. I just think he was such a it's the contract part that really gets me. I mentioned it offline. I saw it this morning. I was just like, oh, like it took the wind out of my sails a bit because I wanted Zeitler and Joseph speak. What? Oh,
2 years, $22 million.
Wow.
Dalvin Tomlinson to the Vikings.
Oh,
Got decent money, not as crazy for some of the other crazy numbers that came out.
Yeah.
And just a quick aside for everybody listening, all the craziness today means a week from now, there's going to be equal craziness in the converse of that coin, in the fact of, wait, they got him for how much? You are now going to, people are blowing their wad in all these, spending sprees everywhere. And then the teams that don't have cap space are left, and they're like, oh, well, we have a roster spot in like 75 cents we found over here. You want to try that?
There you go.
We'll buy you some Skittles.
Oh, I take some Skittles. I like that. Marshawn Lynch and I are the same in that regard.
There you go.
I like Skittles. Marshawn Lynch was a missed opportunity. Oh, that kind of I
Well,
don't
but
know.
you go back to a phase of time where if anybody wants to take solace or in frustration that Bean's not out there breaking the banks, signing a $15 million Carl Lawson today,
Yeah.
take solace in the fact that 4 different players rework their contract to stay. 3 more sought-after players took below market value deals to stay with the Bills, and then we watched our division rival Patriots overspend on every single player they had.
Trying to
This
compete
is
with us.
the exact opposite of the last 20 years of our lives.
Where are
we are now the team that people take under market values deals to stay, take pay cuts to stay on the roster, and the division rival is scrambling to overpay players who are decent values or decent names but way overpriced. that was us forever. We paid a really good player, Mario Williams, record-breaking money. We paid guys like talented ones we draft, like Marshawn Lynch and Stephon Gilmore, wanted to go elsewhere because they just wanted to leave. This is a brave new world. Enjoy that piece of it if you're frustrated with that we didn't sign 6 awesome players today.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great takeaway. And like even myself, like I'm a little bummed that we didn't get Kevin Zeitler, especially in comparison to Feliciano and that deal, but I'm not distraught. And I recognize the multitude of other moves, whether it's throughout free agency, like we spoke about earlier, or potentially in the draft that can be used to supplement the offensive line and continue to get better and upgrade that. But that was my biggest missed opportunity. And it's not ruining free agency for me. There's no dark cloud, but I definitely saw Zeitler sign that deal. And I was like, oh, as Al mentioned in the chat, have a Zeitler-sized hole in his heart. Yeah, I felt that a little bit. I was just like, oh, he's such a good guard, and that's such good value, and I wanted to upgrade that spot. So that one got me a little bit as far as a missed opportunity. Anthony, we'll start with you. What do you got?
Yeah, I blame Eric Turner for the Zeitler stuff, for posting all the nice highlights of him on the Cover One Twitter and all that, because I was really sold on him as well for that reason. And like you said, it was the contract that got that. I think one of mine today would have been Jonnu Smith, but I'm not disappointed because he got paid so much that I was just like, wild. Again, have a nice day. $12 million. Jesus, I thought you were going to get 8. You can go to anybody for 12. So, I mean, I wasn't as disappointed with that one. Carl Lawson was probably the one, and it hit just before we went live, too. We were all like, I was holding out hope all day because I'm like, you know what? There's no news on Carl Lawson yet. I wonder if he's working something out. There's been kind of silence all day long. I'm like, this is good news, right? He could be talking to the Bills. And I think it was just the hype of him being the piece that fit the Bills the most as a young player who could upgrade that position and be a long-term answer for us. I mean, I saw so disappointment-wise, Zeitler, maybe Jonnu Smith, but Carl Lawson was definitely
that's fair.
A painful one.
Yeah.
Everyone hates Henry Anderson. Greg mentioned it earlier that he gets to stay on a team that allows us to continue to hate him. Yeah, I hate him. I won't ever not hate him.
Extra bonus hate.
Hate him.
We already talked about my biggest miss. It was Jason Verrett for $5 million. That's the perfect kind of player I would have loved to add. Jason Verrett, $5 million would have been nice. I'm shocked that kind of deal happened today. That's a weird deal to happen day one of free agency. But, he good.
When I read that he signed, I thought it would be 3 years for a little more.
It's not shocking because it was a re-signing. It was him staying with San Francisco, so it just happened to get announced today. So that's why it wasn't a day one signing. It was just him deciding, you want to know what? I'll just stay here. Good for him, and I'm happy he didn't go to our division.
That's a good one. He was of all the corners I wanted added in free agency. William Jackson is my number 1. Jason Verrett was my number 2. He had a phenomenal year for San Francisco. Now I don't think a lot of people knew about it. Also, just don't look at the game when we played the Niners and Stephon Diggs cooked him on that jerk route real bad, so just don't pay attention to that. He had a very good year. Yeah, that one hurt a little bit as well. What about you, Eric? What do you got?
I was on the Carl Lawson train as well, but to see him go high, didn't hurt my feelings too bad. But one that kind of went early, who I thought would maybe be a Friday guy, was Mark Ingram, running back. I thought maybe he could come in and give this room a boost. And he was a good price, but he goes to the Texans. He was kind of one of the early signs, so I already recovered from that. But I was pain, but I'm recovered.
Oh, I like that. Oh, and John, regular watcher of Disguise Coverage, and sorry to put this up and cover your face a little bit there, Greg, because John wrote so much, but a regular follower. There you go, regular follower of Cover One. Thank you so much, John, for your donation. As always, you're a tremendous supporter. We appreciate you greatly. And good thought here. In a down cap year, stay out of the deep end. Loads of vets will also be cut after the draft. Bean is a wizard. Value shop. Number 1 need is elite pass rusher. Trade up for Gregory Rousseau from the Miami Hurricanes. Verrett hurt. He's with Greg on that one. Watching Verrett go to the San Francisco 49ers. I think John's got a lot of spot on points here, and he's echoed some of the sentiments and thoughts that we've had throughout this of it's a nuclear winter, as Greg has coined this offseason in terms of salary cap and monetary spending and all those things. And you can't, as John mentioned, just thrust yourself into the deep end and expect to come out clean, especially with the contracts we've already got for the Bills and what we've had. And we can't just load up and sign anybody we want and break the bank, and there are going to be affordable spots. And that's an interesting part mentioned there too, the vets that'll be cut after the draft, in addition to leading up for the next couple of weeks. There's going to be guys that are going to start to fall off, and that's where we start to see those value signings. And I think we've all mentioned it at one point or another in this episode. Now the Bills are that team that some vet is like, yeah, I'll take a 1-year, $4 million deal and try and get a ring. Yeah, I'll take
fun.
Like, what? Like, we're finally that team right now that gets to have those quality dudes who get cut, like when Steve Smith got cut from the Panthers and he went to the Ravens because it was like, oh, cool, like this team is awesome and I like their mentality. I'm going to try to get a ring. That's us now. We're that team with, I mean, the Ravens didn't have a sweet young quarterback, but, well, depends on if you think Joe Flacco's a lead or not. But we've got a sweet young quarterback. We've got an awesome culture. We've got an organization and a coaching staff that people respect, both in the building and outside of it. You heard that multiple times with Micah Hyde when he re-upped. And he talked about how he brags about the culture to other people and tells them like how they missed out by not coming to Buffalo. Matt Milano mentioned it in his re-signing that at the end, like, he just wanted to stay in Buffalo because what we're building here is special, and he wanted to be a part of that culture. Like, that's a real thing. Even Josh Norman hit on it last offseason when he signed. He mentioned the night and day difference of where Buffalo was viewed when he first came in the league as kind of just not being taken seriously as a joke, and now they were an organization that dudes wanted to go to. And that was last year before they had this 13-3 year. And now we're at a point, again, it's such a great perspective that John mentioned and that we've all echoed at some point on Twitter or in this episode. Don't get down or just think like, oh, nothing happened today, they're not going to do anything. The Bills still have a lot of ways to finagle some cap space, but also they're going to have those value moves that are going to be made available to them as dudes get cut and they're vets and they get to decide where they go. That could be the Buffalo Bills. What a wild thought that is.
It's crazy. I just want to remind everyone how smart John is for agreeing with me.
Well, I mean, that's debatable.
We'll see. There's so many options available here. I went through all the different crazy stuff that I lined out. If Brandon Beane wanted to lean into every possible bit of cap room, and I made sure to clarify, he's not going to do all those things. But the important part is to be able to see he can do anything that he wants. If he wanted to go give Carl Lawson, $15 million a year today, he could have. Like, that's still possible. He can fit anything that he wants. I think it's smart that he doesn't, and that we're preparing for Tremaine Edmonds and Josh Allen and the contracts that are coming up. Another fun thing, I think that the Micah Hyde deal is going to get replicated here with Jerry Hughes in the next week. I think we'll see something very similar. And then going into next year, there are literally no free agents. None. Like, there's like the best player who's unsigned is like Harrison Phillips and Taron Johnson. Like, there's wild. No one concerning. Like, every single guy is under contract, and I think it's literally Vernon Butler, Jerry Hughes, Taron Johnson, Harrison Phillips. Those are the four best right now. So would it shock me if we had a 3-year, $12 million deal, extension for Taron Johnson during the year? No. That, you add another year or two onto Jerry Hughes that kind of helps manage the cap for this year. That won't shock me. We probably will be in a spot to let Vernon Butler walk. I think we're in a spot to let Harrison Phillips walk. You do a veteran and a defensive tackle in the draft, and this entire roster is ready to be together for a 3-year run with virtually no changes, just being good all over the place. It's fantastic.
It's wild. It's so awesome. And we got another donation coming through. Thank you so much, Dwayne. Massive, massive thank you to all of us, or from all of us here at Cover One. Dwayne said, thanks for doing this, guys. And you're absolutely right. We are that team with an exclamation point. I just feel a surprise player will come to us, not the other way around. Chill. They will come to us. I think that's a good direction. That are we the Field of Dreams team now? Has it been built and people will come?
Hey, looks like it.
You guys have no idea how bad I wanted to keep refreshing and have news break during the show. Like,
I wanted the Diggs deal, the Diggs level
I wanted
deal,
it like last year. So bad.
It happened last year, like 9:30ish, I think, 9:45ish.
Yeah, it was like, man. And I was on live with Pat Moran during that
That's right, you
news
said that.
breaking. And we've gone back and listened to it. It's hysterical to listen to our response, being like, wait, is this real? Wait, hold on. I see a check mark. Hold on. I need another one. I need, yes, this is real. We just traded for Stephon Diggs. Holy crap. It's so funny. It's just fantastic.
Oh, it's just been, and another, man, these are just all coming through. Nicholas with the donation. Thank you so much. Nicholas said, always a great show. Here's a pack of Skittles or two for the 2021 war chest. I would 1,000% take some real Skittles. If you want to send them to me, DM me. I'll give you my address. I love Skittles. They're my favorite candy. And oh man, this is Justin with the donation. Thanks, boys. Appreciate you, Justin. You were great in the chat and engagement all throughout the episode. Oh man, what a great show tonight. Thank you, Ron, for the great show, boys. We appreciate you, Ron. You're always an avid listener. Thank you very much for that. And okay, man, I just can't keep up with this. Now we got another one coming from John with the donation. Thank you so much, John. Greatly appreciate you. Number one job is to keep Josh Allen upright, being just built in all 30 or younger, good offensive line with everyone signed for the next 2 to 3 years or more. The front office is exceptional. That's also a good way to look at it. Keeping Josh. I mean, I think Greg mentioned it earlier. Anthony, I know you said a very similar aspect of, keep Josh Allen happy. Greg, you want to keep Josh Allen upright. It's wild that even as we're starting to still process this whole thing of like the Bills are good and that's wanting to come to us, so on and so forth. Even just the thought of like, we've got an upper tier quarterback and we need to protect him and surround him with stuff. That's still like a thing. Like, I'm still not used to that. I haven't felt this confident in a quarterback in, oh man. Like, I felt confident in Flutie at the end of the Music City Miracle season. Granted, we know how that worked out. Thanks, Ralph Wilson. But I haven't felt – I had it a little bit with Bledsoe here and there. But I haven't – man, to have like – especially have a young franchise upper-tier quarterback, like a guy that we have to protect, that's so exciting. I can see the smile on Anthony's face. It's getting me excited.
I was just thinking the same thing about our first-round pick, right? Our first-round pick this year is a luxury. It is an absolute luxury. We don't need it. How many years can we say that? Last year we didn't have one. We were already good, but we did not have a first-round pick because we traded for Diggs, which was the best one that we could have gotten. But how many years did we know we're picking a quarterback? We're picking this position, whatever it was. This year we're picking the guy who's going to come in and he might not even start as whatever first-round pick. He's not an immediate starter and savior of the team. He's, hey, come in, maybe you can contribute to your thing. If you play well enough, we'll give you more snaps kind of thing. And the position even, we could be anybody.
Is that guy competing with Corey Bojorquez?
Don't no Rasmus Dahlin slander from you, Greg. Hashtag Greg doesn't know hockey. That was a very funny joke. That was very good. You know what? If Dahlin could play football, I'd put him on the Bills. I feel so bad for him, just floundering out there.
Might have a backup quarterback position.
Oh, we might.
Oh, yeah.
He's got those blonde locks. He's got those blonde Matt Barkley locks.
Yeah.
He could function as that number 2 QB. He's athletic. Maybe he can carry the football through midfield the way he carries the puck from end to end and through the neutral zone. That's a possibility.
You just do what Jake Fromm did. Just stay home.
Oh, we could do that. I could do that as well. We could all get that value. And I think that is going to start to do it for us as we start to wind down here. Throwing up the toodles, you guys, as John throws in the chat, free Dahlin. Yeah, we need to free Rasmus Dahlin. I feel bad for him. This was, man, I didn't know how long this episode was going to go. And we've hit over 2 hours, but it does not feel like that whatsoever. This was tremendously fun and exciting. Major shout out to everyone who was with us in the chat. A lot of you guys were with us from start until right now. The live views have been great. The engagement, the questions, the thoughts, the comments, the concerns, the philosophies, the theorems, the maxims that you guys have all posted and posited have been fantastic. Thank you guys so much. It means so much. And everybody who donated, even if you didn't, your positive thoughts and positive feedback and everything like that, it means so much to us. We're nothing without it. We're nothing without you guys. And I would have been nothing on this episode if not from my guests. Major thank you to Anthony and Greg and Eric. You guys are fantastic. I'm so thankful that we're all part of the same team and able to do these collaborative episodes together. And Anthony, why don't you tell the good people where they can find you, what you do, and how come you didn't wear your Bills suit tonight?
Well, you can find us on the Hoof Podcast. Tuesday nights, tomorrow night we'll be live again, probably doing a similar thing here, talking about the transactions of the day. Joe Marino is actually going to be joining us tomorrow, so that'll be a lot of fun to talk draft, of course, with him. and the moves of the day and such. So Tuesday night's the live show, Friday night's the recorded pod. We've been doing the preparing for the draft series, and now we're kind of shifting to getting closer to now making our predictions for what we think is going to happen in the draft and who we might target in the draft. You got a preview of that tonight, I guess. But yeah, catch me on Twitter at Anthony Romeo NY. Always talking to people there, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
Beautiful. Greg, why don't you tell, they should know by now, but in case they don't, tell them where they can find you and when your Capology thesis is coming out and hitting every Barnes & Noble in the United States.
I am working on a secret deal. So you guys can find me at Greg Tompsett on the Twitter machine, in the Cover One Slack channel, and just generally having a good time trying to math as much as I can.
Man.
Eric B., let the good people know where to find you.
They can find me on Twitter at eBrownHoof. I'll be with the show tomorrow, and I'm doing the solo pod for Friday, getting everybody
Breaking news.
There we go.
Ryan Fitzpatrick is a Washington football team member.
Wow.
Fitz is going to be a starting quarterback again.
I wish I would have had that last year when I had Terry McLaurin and I couldn't get anybody to throw him the ball in fantasy football.
God bless him. God bless Fitzy. He still chucking the rock. Attaboy.
Oh, man. Oh, shout out to Fitzy.
They got a lot better just now.
A little bit. I know that came through, Eric, as you were kind of signing off there. Anything else you wanted to add at the end there?
I think I got it in, but just thanks for having us, guys. I had a great time tonight.
Yes, thank you, Anthony.
Hell yeah. No, thank you, guys. I, of course, am Anthony, your regular host here on Disguise Coverage. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro 2_ ANT. Please follow me on the old Twitter. If follows aren't your thing, I'll take any one of the 3 Deathly Hallows, preferably the Death Stick, or even Voldemort's wand. It doesn't have to be one of the Deathly Hallows. I'm down for all interesting trades and things like that. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage. And while you're there checking out Disguise Coverage, check out all the other great content on Cover One. I know I say it every week, but Greg and Aaron on the Cover One Buffalo podcast, Anthony and Eric B. and Sterling, who unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight because electricity failed him in his house. The Hoof podcast is awesome. I don't just say it because I'm part of this team. We're the best when it comes to Buffalo Bills analysis. Whatever your preference is, whatever you're looking for, we got breakdowns, we got lighthearted takes, serious analysis, anything and everything you're looking for. We got you covered every single day of the week. Got you covered on Twitter. Apologies if we didn't get to your thought or comment in this episode live, but you know what the great benefit of social media is? You can ask us on Twitter. Feel free to @ any of us on Twitter. We'll answer you as soon as we possibly can. Thank you, everybody, for riding with us on this episode. And I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones all stay safe. And again, massive thank you to Anthony, Eric B., Greg. I couldn't have done this without you guys. Thank you guys so much. Hope you guys and all your family and friends and loved ones all stay safe. And as always, go Bills. And I'll see you next week.
Go Bills.